In this video, we're going to be talking about the most insane One Piece theories. So let's get started with our first one. Luffy, becoming the Pirate King, is his destiny, and fate itself bends reality around him to make it happen. In the very first episode, I'm Luffy, the man who will become the Pirate King. We see this pattern start immediately. Monkey D. Luffy starts his pirate journey in the most ridiculous way possible, floating in a barrel after his boat got destroyed by a whirlpool. But here's the thing that makes you wonder. How does someone survive being trapped at sea in a wooden barrel and still wake up completely fine? Most people would die from dehydration, starvation, or just the trauma of being tossed around in the ocean. Luffy wakes up like he just had a good nap. The episode shows us a cruise ship randomly finding Luffy's barrel floating in the ocean. Think about how huge the ocean is and how tiny one barrel looks compared to everything else. The mathematical odds of a ship finding him at exactly the right moment are insane. The sailors pull him aboard without knowing what's inside, almost like something was forcing them to save him. Then the Alvida pirates attack that exact same ship at that exact moment. This timing is way too perfect to be random. If the pirates had attacked earlier, Luffy's barrel might have been destroyed in the cannon fire. If they attacked later, he might have already left with the cruise ship. But everything happens at precisely the right time for Luffy's story to begin properly. Luffy wakes up right when pirates are about to discover him in the kitchen. Again, perfect timing. He's not panicked about being lost at sea, not worried about where he is or how he got there, just hungry and ready to fight. Honestly, this isn't how normal people react. Most would be confused, scared, asking a million questions. Luffy acts like waking up on a random ship during a pirate attack is just another Tuesday. The way he handles the hostile pirates shows something deeper at work. These aren't weak enemies. They're part of Alvida's crew, seasoned pirates who've been terrorizing ships. But they go down like they're made of paper when Luffy fights them. It's not just that he's strong. It feels like the universe decided they weren't allowed to win against him. When Luffy faces Alvida herself, everything falls into place for him in ways that seem impossible. Alvida is this massive pirate captain who's been ruling the seas, feared by everyone. She has experience, a crew, weapons, and the advantage of being on familiar territory. Luffy is a teenager who literally just started his pirate career that day. But the fight isn't even close. Here's where it gets really interesting. Luffy ate a devil fruit as a kid that made his body rubber. Devil fruits are supposed to be incredibly rare treasures that grant unique powers. The world government and pirates fight wars over them. But somehow, a random village boy stumbles upon one of the rarest powers in the world and eats it by accident. That's not luck. That's destiny, preparing him for something bigger. The rubber power specifically counters Alvida's fighting style perfectly. Her spiked club, her main weapon that probably crushed dozens of enemies before, becomes completely useless against someone whose body bounces back from blunt force. It's like the universe knew exactly what power Luffy would need for this exact moment years before it happened. Luffy doesn't struggle during the fight. He defeats her with one Gomu Gomu no pistol attack and sends her flying into the sea like she weighs nothing. The ease of it is honestly unsettling when you really think about it. This was supposed to be a dangerous pirate captain, and Luffy treats her like a minor inconvenience. Right after beating Alvida, more impossible timing happens. Luffy spots a mysterious girl, escaping on her own boat. Nami? That's Nami, though he doesn't know it yet. She was stealing treasure from the pirates during the chaos, and she leaves at exactly the moment Luffy would notice her. The timing plants the seed for their future meeting without either of them realizing it. Then there's Koby, who becomes crucial to Luffy's immediate plans. Koby happens to dream of joining the Marines, knows the local geography, and most importantly, knows exactly where to find Roronoa Zoro. The next person Luffy needs for his crew is sitting in a Marine base that Koby can direct him to. What are the odds of that? The conversation between Luffy and Koby reveals more strange elements. Koby has been planning his escape from the pirates for 2 years, building a boat in secret. But he never used it until the day Luffy showed up. It's like he was waiting for something without knowing what. Then Luffy appears, and suddenly Koby finds the courage to finally chase his dream. When Luffy declares he's going to become the Pirate King, Koby thinks he's crazy. But there's something different about how Luffy says it. He states it like a fact about the future he already knows will happen. There's this unwavering confidence that feels almost supernatural. Look, I know this sounds crazy, but hear me out. The long-term pattern this episode establishes is wild when you look back at the whole series. Luffy keeps surviving impossible situations, meeting exactly the right people at exactly the right moments, and having everything work out despite making zero plans. He doesn't strategize, doesn't prepare, doesn't even think ahead most of the time. But somehow the universe keeps arranging circumstances so he can succeed. This first episode shows us that Luffy's journey isn't just driven by his own actions. Reality itself seems invested in making him the Pirate King. The timing, the coincidences, the perfect matchups, everything points to a destiny that was set in motion long before he ever left his village. Think about it from Alvida's perspective. She's been a successful pirate captain, probably never lost a fight before this. Then some random kid shows up, beats her in one punch, and her entire world gets turned upside down. From her point of view, this makes no sense. But from a destiny perspective, Luffy was always meant to win that fight. The episode ends with Luffy and Koby sailing toward their next adventure, with Luffy already talking about finding Zoro and eventually reaching the Grand Line. He has this casual confidence about the whole thing, like he already knows how the story ends. Maybe he does, in some cosmic way. What really sells this theory is how effortless everything feels for Luffy in this first episode. Other characters struggle, plan, worry about consequences. Luffy just exists, and the world rearranges itself around him to make his dreams come true. With Luffy's destiny set in motion, now we shift to Buggy and the secret strength hiding behind his clown act. What if the most dangerous pirate is the one everyone's laughing at? This theory suggests that Buggy, the clown-like pirate who looks like a total joke, might actually be hiding the most mind-blowing secret in the One Piece world. His ability to split and reconnect could be a massive clue to something way bigger happening behind the scenes. In Episode 5, Season 1, titled Fear Mysterious Power, Pirate Clown Captain Buggy, we get our first real look at a pirate who's way more than just a joke. Buggy might look like a circus act, but this episode reveals something way more interesting brewing beneath the surface. Imagine a world where being a joke might actually be your greatest superpower. That's Buggy in a nutshell. His devil fruit ability, called the Bara Bara no Mi, the Chop Chop fruit, looks like something out of a comedy sketch. A pirate who can split into pieces? Most people would laugh. But what if it's something way deeper? The first time we see this power in action is mind-blowing. Zoro, this legendary swordsman who's supposed to be this ultimate fighter, attacks Buggy expecting an easy win. But Buggy doesn't play by normal rules. He gets cut up and just reconnects. Like it's nothing. It's not just a trick, it's like he's rewriting the entire concept of how a body should work. Pirates in this world have crazy powers, but most of them make sense. Some turn into elements, some have super strength. But Buggy? He turns getting chopped up into a survival strategy. Every time someone thinks they've got him figured out, he does something completely unexpected. Look at how his crew treats him. They're terrified, but it's because nobody knows what he'll do next. That unpredictability is way more dangerous than just being strong. Nami's interactions with Buggy are super interesting too. She's this master thief who's only looking out for herself. But even she hesitates when Buggy orders her to do something. There's something about him that goes beyond just being a pirate captain. The Buggy Ball scene is another clue. He destroys an entire row of houses like it's nothing. This is a genuine threat who knows exactly how to cause maximum chaos. What if Buggy's power is actually a metaphor for something bigger in the One Piece world? In a universe where nothing is random, his ability to split and reconnect might mean something huge. Maybe he's showing us something about how the world actually works, that things aren't always as solid or permanent as they seem. Think about how many characters try to be tough and serious. Buggy does the opposite. He turns being underestimated into an art form. While everyone else is trying to look cool, he's actually becoming one of the most dangerous pirates around. The craziest part is how he fights. Most pirates have one trick. Buggy has a million. Cut off his hand? It'll probably stab you with itself. Think you've won? He'll just put himself back together and laugh in your face. It's like he's playing an entirely different game than everyone else. This is about how sometimes the most dangerous thing is the thing nobody takes seriously. In the world of One Piece, looking like a joke might actually be the ultimate survival strategy. Buggy represents something revolutionary, the idea that being underestimated is sometimes more powerful than being feared. He's trying to be the most unpredictable, and in a world of legendary pirates, that might be the most dangerous ability of all. Every time someone thinks they understand Buggy, he proves them wrong. He's a walking, talking challenge to everything everyone thinks they know about power, fighting, and survival. The real genius of Buggy is that he knows exactly what he's doing. While other pirates are busy showing off, he's busy surviving. And in the brutal world of One Piece, survival is the ultimate victory. Some might see a clown, but what if he's actually seeing something the rest of us are missing? In a world of impossible powers and crazy adventures, Buggy might just be the smartest pirate of them all. His devil fruit might look ridiculous, but it's a perfect metaphor for something deeper. In a world that's constantly trying to cut you down, the ability to fall apart and come back together is the ultimate power. Buggy is turning the entire concept of defeat upside down. The episode leaves us with a crucial question. In a world of legendary pirates and impossible powers, could the most dangerous ability be the one nobody sees coming? Buggy seems to think so, and based on what we've seen, he might just be right. Think about the deeper implications. Most characters in One Piece have powers that make sense: fire, rubber, ice. But Buggy? His power challenges the entire concept of physical existence. What if that's not a coincidence? What if Buggy's ability is actually a hint about something fundamental to the One Piece universe? He's like a walking metaphor. Something that looks broken can actually be the most powerful thing around. Every time someone tries to destroy him, he just splits apart and comes back stronger. In a world full of epic battles and impossible powers, Buggy might be the ultimate survivor. The theory is about how being underestimated can be the most powerful weapon of all. While everyone else is busy showing off, Buggy is busy proving that nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Now that we've explored Buggy's wild unpredictability, let's shift gears to Gaimon and the strange island that might be hiding one of the biggest secrets in One Piece. Some theorists joke that the treasure Gaimon guards could actually be a piece of the One Piece, hidden in plain sight all along. In Season 1, Episode 18, You Are a Special Animal, Gaimon and His Bizarre Friends. We meet this weird guy who might be sitting on the biggest secret in the entire series. Gaimon is this pirate who got stuck in a treasure chest for 20 years on the island of rare animals. The crew finds him after he tries to scare them away by pretending to be some kind of god protecting the island. Right away, this whole setup screams suspicious. An island with divine protection and weird hybrid animals? That's not random in the One Piece world. The backstory Gaimon tells is where things get really interesting. He came to this island with his pirate crew looking for treasure. After searching for a whole month, they found nothing and were ready to leave. But then Gaimon spotted 5 treasure chests sitting on top of a mountain. He got so excited that he fell off the mountain and got stuck in one of the empty chests below. When Luffy climbs up to check those 5 chests on the mountain, they're completely empty. Gaimon acts like this gives him closure and freedom and decides to stay on the island with his animal friends. But here's the thing. In One Piece, when something seems too convenient or too neat, there's usually more going on. The island itself is a massive red flag. These aren't normal animals. They're all weird hybrids like rabbit snakes and lion pigs. In a world where devil fruits can create impossible powers, these creatures might not be random mutations. They could be guardians of something way more important than anyone realizes. Gaimon refuses to leave the island, even when Luffy invites him to join the crew. Most people would jump at the chance to escape after 20 years of being stuck in the same place. But Gaimon is determined to stay and protect these animals. What if he's actually protecting something else? Think about it. The perfect hiding spot for a piece of the One Piece would be somewhere nobody would ever think to look seriously. An island guarded by a crazy guy stuck in a chest, with empty treasure boxes that everyone assumes hold nothing? That's genius-level hiding. The way Gaimon talks about the island is weird too. He calls it divinely protected and acts like he has some special connection to the place. For a guy who supposedly just got stuck there by accident, he's awfully protective of it. Maybe his fall wasn't an accident at all. Maybe he was chosen to be the guardian. Look at the timing of everything. Gaimon's crew searches for a month and finds nothing. But right before they leave, he spots the treasure chests. Then he conveniently falls and gets stuck in a position where he can watch over the island forever. That's either the worst luck in history or the most elaborate setup ever. The episode shows us that Gaimon has become friends with all these impossible hybrid animals. In most cases, wild animals would attack or avoid humans. But these creatures accept him as their protector. Maybe they recognize that he's guarding something important to their island. Here's another weird detail. Gaimon never seems to age or get sick despite being stuck in a chest for 20 years. Normal humans would have serious health problems from that kind of confinement. But he's completely fine, almost like something is keeping him healthy and strong for his guardian duties. The immediate reaction from Luffy and the crew is to feel bad for Gaimon and move on. They see a sad story about a guy who wasted 20 years, guarding nothing. But what if that's exactly what someone protecting the ultimate treasure would want people to think? When Luffy checks the chests and confirms they're empty, he doesn't question it further. But Luffy isn't exactly known for being thorough or thinking things through. What if those chests have false bottoms? What if the real treasure is hidden somewhere else on the mountain and the chests are just decoys? The island's reputation as being divinely protected keeps most pirates away. Only the bravest or most foolish crews would even consider landing there. This creates the perfect screening system. Another's alive. Only pirates with the right spirit would make it to Gaimon. And only the truly special ones would earn his trust. Gaimon's reaction when the crew leaves is telling too. He seems genuinely sad to see them go, but he also looks relieved. Maybe he wanted to tell them the truth but couldn't break his oath as a guardian. Maybe he was hoping Luffy would figure it out on his own. The long-term implications of this theory are wild. If Gaimon really is guarding a piece of the One Piece, then Luffy already passed by one of the most important clues in his journey without knowing it. The Straw Hats might have been standing right next to their ultimate goal and sailed away thinking they were just helping out a lonely guy. What makes this theory even crazier is how it fits with One Piece's style. Oda loves hiding huge plot points in seemingly random episodes. The idea that the most important treasure in the world could be hidden on a forgotten island, guarded by someone everyone thinks is just a sad, crazy pirate. That's exactly the kind of twist that would blow everyone's minds. The hybrid animals, the divine protection, the empty chest that might not actually be empty, this combine everything. Everything about Gaimon's island suggests there's way more going on than meets the eye. Maybe those 20 years weren't wasted at all. Maybe Gaimon has been doing the most important job in the entire One Piece world this whole time. And honestly, when you think about it, who would make a better guardian than someone who seems completely harmless and pathetic? Gaimon is the perfect cover. Nobody would ever suspect that the guy stuck in a treasure chest is actually protecting the key to everything. Gaimon might be guarding a hidden piece of the One Piece, but now we move to Zoro and how Kuina's spirit could still live on in his sword. Kuina's death may tie her spirit to Wado Ichimonji, and now Zoro channels her will every time he fights. In Season 1, Episode 19, Past of the Three Swords, the promise between Zoro and Kuina. We get the backstory that might explain why Zoro is so crazy strong with his swords. Zoro starts out as this cocky kid, going around beating up different dojos in his village. He's basically a troublemaker who thinks he's amazing until he meets Kushiro's dojo. That's where he runs into Kuina, the master's daughter who kicks his butt over and over again. We're talking about 2-0 losses. That's En getting completely destroyed by someone who should be around his level. The episode shows us their rivalry over years. Zoro trains like crazy, gets strong enough to beat all the grown-ups in the dojo, but still can't touch Kuina. She's just way better than him. When they finally have their last real fight with actual swords instead of practice ones, she beats him for the 2-0th time. But here's where things get sad. Kuina breaks down and talks about how she'll never be the world's greatest swordsman because she's a girl. This talk changes everything. They make this promise to each other. One of them will become the world's greatest swordsman no matter what. They're going to train harder, push more, and make their dream happen. It's this sweet moment of two kids bonding over wanting the same thing. Then something terrible happens. Kuina dies falling down some stairs. Just like that, this amazing swordsman who beat Zoro for years is gone from a stupid accident. It's almost too cruel to be real. Zoro is heartbroken, but he makes a choice that shapes his whole life. He's going to become the world's greatest swordsman for both of them. Kushiro gives Zoro Kuina's special sword, the Wado Ichimonji. This is her family treasure, the sword she used to beat him 2-0 times. From that moment on, Zoro carries this sword everywhere and makes it the main part of his three-sword fighting style. Here's where the theory gets really wild. After getting Wado Ichimonji, Zoro's power jumps through the roof. He goes from someone who couldn't beat a teenage girl to becoming one of the scariest swordsmen in the world. Sure, he trains hard, but that kind of improvement seems almost magical. Looking at the big picture, something weird happens with Zoro's fighting style. When he's using all three swords, especially when Wado Ichimonji is involved, he pulls off moves that seem impossible. He cuts through things that should be way beyond what he can do. He finds moves and tricks that come out of nowhere, almost like someone else is helping him. Watch how Zoro treats that sword compared to his other two. He cares about all his weapons, but Wado Ichimonji gets special treatment. He holds it in his mouth most of the time, keeping it closest to him. It's like he's trying to stay connected to something through that blade. What if Kuina's spirit really is stuck in that sword? In the One Piece world, we've seen weirder stuff happen. Devil fruits can make objects come alive. Ancient weapons have their own minds. Why couldn't a sword carry the spirit of someone who died with unfinished business? The timing of Zoro's power boosts always seems to happen when he's about to lose and needs to keep his promise to Kuina. It's like the sword responds to his desperation and gives him something extra to help him win. Maybe that something is Kuina herself, still trying to make their shared dream come true. Think about Zoro's personality too. He's normally this tough, quiet guy who doesn't talk about feelings. But when it comes to his promise to Kuina and becoming the world's greatest swordsman, he gets almost religious about it. He talks to his swords, especially Wado Ichimonji, like they can hear him. The episode shows us that Kuina was already stronger than Zoro when she died. Her moves, her understanding of sword fighting, her natural talent, MPD, all of that knowledge could be stored in the sword somehow. When Zoro fights with Wado Ichimonji, he might be using not just his own skills, but hers too. This would explain why Zoro can sometimes pull off moves that seem beyond his training, why he finds ways to win impossible fights, why his willpower becomes almost supernatural when he's about to lose. It's Stuo people's dreams mixed into one incredibly powerful force. The promise they made to each other creates this unbreakable bond that death couldn't break. Kuina's spirit lives on through the sword, helping Zoro become the swordsman she never got the chance to be. Every win he gets is actually both of them winning together. And honestly, This makes perfect sense when you think about it. Zoro's whole motivation comes from this dead girl and their childhood promise. His strongest sword is the one she used to own. His fighting style revolves around keeping that blade safe. If spirits can exist in the One Piece world, then Kuina's definitely hanging around helping him out. The way Zoro sometimes seems to know things he shouldn't, or finds techniques he never learned, starts making sense if there's literally another person's knowledge flowing through that sword. Kuina was already better than him when she died. So imagine how much stronger she'd be now if she could keep growing through Zoro's experiences. Maybe every time Zoro puts Wado Ichimonji in his mouth, he's connecting with his best friend who's still fighting alongside him. That's both beautiful and kinda creepy when you really think about it. But before we continue with the video, subscribe to our channel. Moving on to the next theory, Luffy's bounty was way too high on purpose. Maybe someone wanted to put a target on his back, or make sure the right people would notice him. In Season 1, Episode 45, Bounty, Straw Hat Luffy becomes world famous. We see what looks like normal bounty stuff, but it's actually pretty weird when you think about it. The crew is just chilling when a news coup brings them a newspaper with Luffy's first wanted poster. 30 million berries, the biggest bounty in all of East Blue. The episode says this happened because Luffy beat a bunch of scary pirates, so the Marines thought he was dangerous. But honestly, when you look at what he actually did, it doesn't add up. Let's be real about Luffy's achievements so far. He beat Alvida, who was basically just a bully picking on weak people. He took down Captain Kuro, who was pretending to be a butler and wasn't even actively pirating. He beat Don Krieg, whose crew was already beaten up and starving from the Grand Line. And he defeated Arlong, who was hiding in some backwater town paying off corrupt Marines. These aren't exactly legendary victories that should make you the most wanted guy in East Blue. The episode shows how everyone reacts to the bounty news. Full Body, this Marine who got demoted after causing trouble at Baratie, thinks capturing Luffy will get his rank back. But why would you risk your whole career going after a 30 million berry rookie when there are way easier ways to get promoted? It's like someone wanted Marines to specifically hunt Luffy down. When Mihawk tells Shanks and his crew about the bounty, they party like it's amazing news. But these guys know how bounties work. 30 million for some kid who's been a pirate for like 2 months should be crazy, not something to celebrate. It's like they knew this was going to happen. Right after the bounty comes out, everyone starts treating Luffy like he's famous. The news spreads super fast across the whole East Blue, way faster than it normally should. That kind of info doesn't just spread by itself. Someone has to make it happen. Here's the really sketchy part, the timing. This bounty drops right before Luffy heads to Logtown and then the Grand Line. Someone wanted to make sure he'd be noticed before going into the most dangerous part of his journey. Maybe they wanted to test him. Or maybe they needed certain people to know where to find him. The episode shows Buggy and Alvida deciding to go after Luffy because of his bounty. 2 pirates who already hate him suddenly have money reasons to hunt him down. How convenient that his bounty brings his old enemies back right when he's about to face new problems. What if someone who knew about Luffy's background set this whole thing up? Someone who knew he was connected to Shanks, or maybe even worse, someone who knew about his family? 30 million for a rookie is either a huge mistake or a signal to the right people. Look at how the Marines talk about his bounty too. They have detailed info about all his recent fights, like they were watching him specifically instead of just getting random reports. That's not normal, Bast. That's surveillance. And honestly, this whole thing makes no sense when you think about how bounties usually work. Most pirates spend years building up their reputation before hitting numbers this high. Luffy goes from 0 to 30 million in a few weeks. Either the world government is completely broken, or someone wanted him to stand out badly. The way the episode presents the bounty announcement is suspicious too. There's this whole formal presentation with charts and everything, like they're making a big deal out of it on purpose. Normal bounty updates don't get this kind of treatment. It feels more like a publicity stunt than actual law enforcement. Think about the other wanted posters we see in Full Body's cabin. Most of those pirates have way lower bounties despite being active for longer. Some of them probably did way worse stuff than Luffy, but they're worth less money. The math just doesn't work unless someone was playing favorites with the numbers. Another weird thing is how quickly the poster gets distributed. The episode shows it reaching people all over East Blue basically instantly. That kind of coordination takes serious resources and planning. Regular bounty updates usually take weeks to spread properly, but Luffy's hits everywhere at once. The Marines in the episode act like they're proud of giving him this bounty, like they accomplished something important. But if you're trying to maintain order in East Blue, making some rookie the biggest target actually makes your job harder. More pirates will want to challenge him. More chaos will follow him around. It's like they wanted to create problems. What's really messed up is how this affects Luffy's crew. They're not ready for this level of attention. Zoro's strong, but the rest of them are still pretty green. Putting a 30 million berry target on their captain puts everyone in danger way before they're prepared for it. A responsible government wouldn't do that unless they had ulterior motives. The long-term effects are obvious too. This bounty makes him a target for bigger players, gets bounty hunters after him, and marks him as a serious pirate way before he's actually ready for that kind of heat. It's like someone was trying to speed up his rise to fame for reasons we still don't know. Maybe there's some faction in the Marines or world government that needed Luffy to be visible. Maybe they knew something about his destiny and wanted to push him toward it faster. Or maybe they wanted to use him as bait for something bigger. Either way, this bounty feels way too planned to be normal Marine business. The episode also shows how this bounty changes the crew's dynamic. Suddenly, they're not just some random pirates having adventures. They're serious criminals with a price on their heads. That psychological shift happens way too fast and feels manufactured. Like someone wanted to force them to take piracy more seriously. The next theory suggests that Alabasta's royals don't just guard knowledge about Pluton. They're protecting a cursed weapon that literally reshapes entire eras when it's used. In Season 4, Episode 118, Secret of the Royal Family, The Ancient Weapon, Pluton, we get our first real look at what might be the most dangerous thing in the One Piece world. Crocodile has King Cobra and Vivi cornered in the palace, and he's finally ready to spill his real plan. The whole Civil War, all the scheming, everything he's done in Alabasta was just to get his hands on information about Pluton. This is one of the ancient weapons that could supposedly destroy the world. The build-up to this reveal has been crazy. Crocodile has been playing the long game for years, infiltrating Alabasta's government, turning the people against their king, starting a war that's tearing the country apart. All of this just to force Cobra to tell him where the poneglyph is that contains info about Pluton. That's some serious dedication for just finding a weapon, unless that weapon is way more important than it seems. When Crocodile explains his plan, something really interesting happens. King Cobra tells him that even the existence of Pluton is in doubt. Think about that for a second. This is the king of Alabasta, whose family has been guarding this secret for generations, and even he's not sure if the thing actually exists. That's either really bad record-keeping, or there's something about Pluton that makes it hard to pin down. What if the reason nobody can confirm Pluton exists is because it's not just a weapon, it's something that fundamentally changes reality when it's used? Maybe every time someone uses Pluton, it reshapes the world so much that the previous era gets wiped from history. That would explain why there are these gaps in the world's timeline. Why so much knowledge from the Void Century is missing. The immediate reaction from everyone in the room shows how serious this is. Chaka is ready to attack Crocodile just for asking about it. Vivi looks terrified. These aren't people who are just worried about a big cannon or battleship. They're scared of something that could end civilization as they know it. Crocodile's backup plan is also telling. He's planted a bomb that will destroy the palace square during the battle between the rebels and royal army. Even if he can't get Pluton, he's still going to reshape Alabasta's future through destruction. Maybe that's what Pluton actually does. It forces change through catastrophic events that nobody can control. Here's where the curse theory gets really wild. What if every major shift in the One Piece world's history happened because someone used Pluton? The fall of the ancient kingdom, the rise of the world government, maybe even the creation of the Grand Line itself. Each time the weapon gets used, it doesn't just destroy things, it rewrites how the world works. The way Crocodile talks about Pluton is suspicious too. He acts like he knows more about it than he's letting on, but he also admits he can't confirm if it actually exists. Maybe that's because previous attempts to find and use Pluton have resulted in the knowledge getting erased from history. The weapon protects itself by making sure nobody remembers what really happened when it was last used. Look at how the episode presents the poneglyph information. These stone tablets are supposed to contain unbreakable records of history, but even they only give clues about Pluton rather than direct instructions. Maybe that's intentional. Maybe the ancient kingdom designed it so that nobody could easily access Pluton's full power without understanding the consequences. The timing of this revelation is also important. Crocodile has spent years manipulating Alabasta, and right when he's about to get what he wants, everything starts falling apart. The Straw Hats show up, his agents start losing fights, his carefully laid plans begin to crumble. What if that's not coincidence? What if Pluton has some kind of protective curse that makes sure anyone who gets too close to finding it faces disaster? Think about the other ancient weapons we know about. Poseidon is a person with the power to control sea kings. Uranus is still a mystery, but Pluton is described as a battleship with incredible destructive power. What if it's not just a ship though? What if it's a ship that exists outside of normal time and space, appearing only when someone worthy tries to use it? The long-term effects we see throughout the series start making sense with this theory. The world government is desperately trying to control information about the Void Century and ancient weapons. Maybe they're not just hiding embarrassing history. Maybe they're trying to prevent someone from using Pluton and changing everything again. Think about how the Nefertari family has been guarding this secret. They've been the rulers of Alabasta for generations. But they refused to move to Marie Joie with the other founding families of the world government. Maybe they knew that being close to the center of power would make it too tempting to use Pluton, so they stayed in Alabasta to keep it locked away. The episode shows Crocodile as this calculating villain who thinks he can control ancient weapons for his own gain. But what if previous people who tried to use Pluton thought the same thing, only to discover that the weapon has its own agenda? Maybe the curse is that it makes whoever uses it reshape the world in ways they never intended. This would explain why the world government is so paranoid about anyone even researching the ancient weapons. They've seen what happens when these things get used, and they know that once Pluton is activated, there's no going back. The world gets rewritten, and everyone has to live with the consequences whether they wanted the change or not. The really scary part is what this means for the current timeline. If Pluton really does reshape eras when it's used, and if Luffy and his crew are getting closer to finding it, then the entire world as we know it might be heading for a complete transformation. Maybe that's what the One Piece really is. Not treasure, but the key to controlling Pluton and deciding what the next era of the world will look like. What makes this theory even more believable is how Oda handles time and history in One Piece. We've got this massive gap called the Void Century, where almost all records were destroyed. We've got ancient civilizations that disappeared without a trace. We've got technology and knowledge that seems way too advanced for when it supposedly existed. All of this could be explained if Pluton periodically resets the world's timeline. The episode also shows how knowledge about Pluton is fragmented and spread across different sources. The royal family knows some things. The poneglyphs contain other pieces, and various organizations have their own incomplete information. This fragmentation might be intentional, a safeguard to make sure nobody can easily assemble the full picture and unleash something they can't control. The next theory is that Vivi's departure isn't the end of her story. Her speech frames her as a future revolutionary ally who'll definitely return for the final war. In Season 4, Episode 129, Everything Began That Day, Vivi tells of her adventures. We see what looks like a goodbye but might actually be setting up her comeback. The episode starts with Igaram having nightmares about Vivi, declaring she wants to be the Pirate Queen. That's a weird dream for him to have unless there's some part of him that knows Vivi's adventure with the Straw Hats changed her in ways that go way beyond just friendship. Meanwhile, the crew is fighting Marines at the harbor while waiting to see if Vivi will join them or stay in Alabasta. The build-up to Vivi's decision is intense. She's getting ready to give a speech to her people while the Straw Hats are literally fighting for their lives against Marine ships. Bon Kure is helping them escape by using his powers to fool the Marines. And everyone knows this is the moment where Vivi has to choose between her duty as a princess and her life as a pirate. When Vivi finally makes it to the harbor, she tells the crew she's staying behind, but asks if they'll still consider her family if they meet again. Here's where it gets interesting. Nami stops Luffy from answering out loud because the Marines are watching. If they hear Luffy confirm Vivi as a crew member, she becomes a wanted criminal. So instead, they do that silent goodbye with the X marks on their arms. But think about what this really means. Vivi is now secretly connected to the future Pirate King's crew. She has inside knowledge of their plans, their strengths, their goals. And she's the ruler of a country that just went through a civil war caused by the world government's secret agents. That's not someone who's just going to sit back and rule peacefully. The speech Vivi gives is supposedly about her adventures with the Straw Hats, but the episode shows it as this coded message. She's telling her people about freedom, adventure, and fighting against corruption without directly saying she was a pirate. That's exactly the kind of talk that creates revolutionaries. Look at what Alabasta just went through. Crocodile, a government-sanctioned warlord, nearly destroyed their entire country. The world government system failed them completely. Vivi knows this, and now she's in a position to do something about it. She's not just going to forget that the current system almost killed everyone she cares about. The timing of everything is also suspicious. This happens right when the Revolutionary Army is starting to make bigger moves against the world government. Dragon's organization is always looking for allies in positions of power, and what's better than a princess who already knows how corrupt the system is? The immediate aftermath shows Vivi watching the Straw Hats sail away, but she doesn't look sad, she looks determined. It's like she's already planning her next move. The episode ends with her still wearing that X mark on her arm, which means she's keeping that connection alive even though she's staying behind. What makes this theory really strong is how Oda handles character departures. When someone's story is truly over, they usually get a clean ending. But Vivi's departure feels temporary, like she's being set up for a bigger role later. The X-Mark thing especially feels like a setup for future recognition. Think about what's happening in the bigger story too. The world government is getting more aggressive, the Revolutionary Army is growing stronger, and everything is building toward a final war. Vivi is perfectly positioned to be a key player in that conflict. She's got the political power, the inside knowledge, and the motivation to fight against the system that almost destroyed her country. The episode also shows how much Vivi learned from traveling with the Straw Hats. She's not the same sheltered princess who started this journey. She's seen how the world really works, she's fought against impossible odds, and she's learned that sometimes you have to break the rules to do what's right. That's revolutionary thinking. And honestly, it would be weird if Vivi just disappeared from the story forever. She's too important, knows too much, and has too many connections to major players. Her role as a secret ally of the future Pirate King makes her one of the most valuable pieces on the board for the final conflict. The way the Marines react to her also indicates they know she's dangerous. They're watching her closely during the goodbye, like they suspect she might be more involved with the Straw Hats than she's letting on. That kind of suspicion doesn't just go away. It means they'll be keeping an eye on her, which could push her toward more radical actions. The conversation she has with her father and Igaram before the speech is revealing too. She tells them she has something important to say, and the way she frames her adventures sounds like she's preparing them for bigger changes. Cobra and Igaram aren't stupid. They can read between the lines and understand that their princess has been fundamentally changed by her experiences. What's really interesting is how the episode handles the theme of loyalty versus duty. Vivi chooses duty to her country over adventure with the Straw Hats, but that doesn't mean she's choosing the status quo. She's choosing to use her position to create change from within the system. That's classic Revolutionary Army thinking. The timing of when various characters learn about Vivi's true identity is also worth examining. The Marines see her with the Straw Hats, but can't prove she was actually part of the crew. That gives her plausible deniability while maintaining her secret connection. It's the perfect setup for her to operate as a double agent later. The episode shows Bon Curé sacrificing himself to help the Straw Hats escape, which mirrors what Vivi is doing on a larger scale. She's sacrificing her personal happiness to serve a greater cause. But unlike Bon Curé's sacrifice, hers is strategic. She's positioning herself to help in a different way. Another detail that stands out is how naturally Vivi fits into the role of giving coded speeches. She's learned to communicate subversive ideas while maintaining her public image. That's exactly the kind of skill someone needs to lead a resistance movement from within government ranks. The episode also establishes that Vivi has connections throughout Alabasta and beyond. She knows rebel leaders, military commanders, and common people. When the time comes for the final war, she'll be able to mobilize resources that could tip the balance in favor of the Revolutionary Army and Straw Hats. The fact that she asks if they'll still consider her family if they meet again is key. She's asking if she'll still be part of the crew. That language choice matters because it implies she's planning to rejoin them eventually, just not right now. The way the episode ends, with everyone crying but also looking forward, creates this sense that this separation is temporary. The emotional weight of the goodbye actually reinforces how important Vivi is to the overall story. You don't give that kind of send-off to a character who's done forever. Another theory is that Enel is connected to extraterrestrials or moon civilizations that get hinted at later in the series. In Season 6, Episode 154, Godland Skypiea, the Angels of the Cloud Beach, we get our first introduction to the concept of God in Skypiea, and there's way more going on than just some guy with lightning powers. The Straw Hats finally make it to Skypiea after that crazy knock-up stream ride, and right away, everything feels different from the normal One Piece world. They're exploring this cloud island that shouldn't even exist, meeting people with wings who call themselves angels, and discovering technology that works completely differently from anything they've seen before. Canis and her father, Pagaya, introduce them to this whole new world, filled with dials, these shells that can store and release different types of energy. The episode shows us waivers that move without wind, tone dials that record and play back sound, and construction sites where they literally cut clouds to build things. This is alien-level stuff that doesn't follow normal physics. The build-up to meeting the god of Skypiea starts right in this episode when Canis and Pagaya warn the crew about Upper Yard, the place where God lives that they must never go to under any circumstances. The way they talk about it is like warning someone about a force of nature or something beyond human understanding. When Nami takes the waiver and rides it perfectly on her first try, Pagaya is shocked because he says it takes 10 years of practice to master, but Nami picks it up instantly, almost like she has some kind of natural connection to this Sky Island technology. That's weird, unless there's something about the technology itself that's meant to be intuitive for certain people. The immediate reaction from Canis and Pagaya when they realize Nami might have gone toward Upper Yard shows genuine terror. These aren't people who are just scared of a strong leader. They're scared of something that could end their entire existence. The way the episode presents their fear makes it clear that whatever rules Skypiea is operating on a completely different level from normal human conflicts. Looking at the long-term implications, everything about Skypiea points toward connections with space and moon civilizations. The island exists 0 meters in the sky, closer to space than to the ocean. The people have wings and call themselves angels. The technology works on principles that seem more advanced than anything else in the One Piece world, and the whole place is ruled by someone called God, who has power over lightning. What makes this theory really compelling is how the episode presents the dial technology. These are organic shells that can store and manipulate energy in ways that seem almost magical. That kind of biotechnology mixing with energy manipulation sounds exactly like what you'd expect from an advanced alien civilization. The way Conus explains the dials also hints at deeper mysteries. She talks about how they're found in specific places and how they work, but there's always this sense that she doesn't fully understand the science behind them. It's like the Sky Islanders inherited this technology from someone else and just learned how to use it without really knowing how it works. The episode also establishes that Skypiea has been isolated from the Blue Sea for a long time. That kind of isolation could be exactly what you'd need if you were trying to hide an alien outpost or moon colony connection from the rest of the world. The fact that it's so hard to reach Skypiea might be intentional rather than just a natural barrier. When you think about Enel's powers and personality later in the arc, the extraterrestrial connection makes even more sense. His lightning abilities, his god complex, his knowledge of technology that nobody else understands, all of this could be explained if he's actually connected to some kind of spacefaring civilization that has been monitoring or influencing the One Piece world. The episode sets up this whole mythology around God that feels different from other powerful characters in the series. Most strong people in One Piece are still recognizably human, even if they have crazy abilities. But the way people talk about the god of Skypiea makes it sound like something fundamentally different from normal human power structures. And honestly, the fact that we later see actual moon civilizations in cover stories and other parts of the series makes this theory way more believable. Oda doesn't just throw in random sci-fi elements. When he introduces something like advanced sky technology or references to the moon, it usually connects to bigger plot points that get revealed later. The whole setup of Skypiea as this hidden realm above the clouds, with its own rules and technology, feels like the perfect place to hide evidence of extraterrestrial contact. The fact that most people in the Blue Sea don't even believe Sky Islands exist gives whoever might be running things up their perfect cover to operate without interference. The episode also introduces some really weird details about how the Sky Islands work. They talk about sea clouds and island clouds like they're completely different substances with their own properties. That level of atmospheric manipulation isn't something you'd expect from a normal civilization. It sounds more like terraforming technology that an advanced spacefaring race would use to create habitable environments. Look at how casually Pagaya explains seastone technology too. He mentions it like it's just another construction material. But seastone is supposed to be incredibly rare and valuable in the Blue Sea. If Sky Islanders have easy access to it and know how to work with it, that implies they have knowledge and resources that go way beyond what normal humans should have. The way the episode presents the different types of dials is also suspicious. There are so many varieties with such specific functions: heat dials, breath dials, flash dials, impact dials. That kind of specialized biotechnology doesn't develop naturally. It looks more like the result of deliberate engineering by someone who understood energy manipulation on a fundamental level. Another detail that stands out is how the Sky Islanders seem to have perfect knowledge of Blue Sea geography and navigation. Conus and Pagaya know about waivers from Nolan's travelogue, which means they've been keeping track of Blue Sea developments for centuries. That kind of long-term monitoring and record-keeping sounds like exactly what you'd expect from an alien observation post. The religious aspects of Skypiea also fit with the extraterrestrial theory. The whole concept of a god who lives in the sky and controls lightning is basically what ancient civilizations would think if they encountered advanced aliens. The Sky Islanders might be descendants of people who made contact with extraterrestrials long ago and built their entire culture around worshipping their technology. What's really interesting is how the episode shows that Sky Island culture has stagnated. They have all this incredible technology, but they're not really advancing or innovating. They just use what they've inherited without fully understanding it. That's exactly what you'd expect if they were given technology by aliens and told to maintain it but not develop it further. The timing of when the Straw Hats arrive at Skypiea is also worth considering. They show up right when major changes are about to happen with Enel and the conflict over Upper Yard. Maybe that's not coincidence. Maybe someone or something has been guiding events to bring the right people to Skypiea at the right time to resolve whatever alien agenda has been playing out there. Before we move on to the next theory, subscribe to our channel. Here's another wild theory. The Golden Bell might not just signal history. It could be a literal communication device meant to reach Joy Boy across centuries. In Season 6, Episode 174, The Vanished City, The Magnificent Ruins of Shandora, we get Robin's discovery of the ancient city that might hold the key to understanding this massive mystery. Robin is exploring the ruins of Upper Yard when she gets into a fight with Yama, the chief enforcer. This guy is trying to destroy the ancient monuments while Robin is desperately trying to protect them. She realizes these ruins are way more important than just old buildings. They're holding secrets that someone has been trying to keep hidden for centuries. The build-up to Robin's big discovery happens when she beats Yama and continues exploring deeper into the ruins. She finds that there's a whole lower level hidden beneath the upper ruins, like someone deliberately buried an entire city. When she goes down there, she discovers that Shandora, the city that was supposedly destroyed 800 years ago, is actually still mostly intact underground. Here's where things get really interesting. Robin finds a poneglyph in the hidden city, and she realizes that Shandora fought to protect it. She mentions that the great belfry between the four altars could tell the true history and might be the Rio poneglyph. But think about what a belfry actually is. It's a bell tower. This whole city was built around protecting and operating a massive bell system. The immediate reaction Robin has is connecting this to what she learned in Alabasta. She's putting together pieces of a puzzle that spans centuries, and the bell seems to be a central part of whatever communication network the ancient kingdom had set up. Why would you build an entire golden city around a bell, unless that bell was doing something way more important than just making noise? The long-term implications are huge when you think about what Joy Boy actually was. If he was some kind of leader or important figure from the Void Century, and if he made promises that he couldn't keep, maybe the bell was supposed to be how he'd communicate when he returned. The golden bell could be like an ancient version of a radio transmitter, designed to send signals across vast distances or even through time. What makes this theory really compelling is how the episode shows that Shandora was deliberately preserved underground. Someone went to massive effort to hide this city while keeping it intact. That's not what you do with just any ruins. That's what you do when you're protecting something that needs to stay functional for when it's needed again. The episode also shows Robin understanding that all the scholarly books about Shandora were destroyed, which means someone was actively trying to erase knowledge about this place. But they couldn't destroy the city itself because they needed to keep the bell system operational. The destruction was a cover-up, not actual destruction. Think about the timing, too. The knock-up stream that brought part of Jaya to the sky happened exactly when Noland and Cricket's ancestor made their promise about the bell. Maybe that wasn't coincidence. Maybe the bell needed to be moved to a specific location to work properly, and the knock-up stream was triggered intentionally. The way Robin talks about the Rio poneglyph being connected to the belfry also makes sense if the bell is a communication device. Poneglyphs are basically indestructible message systems, and if the bell is meant to transmit messages across time, you'd want those messages to be recorded on something that can't be destroyed or altered. What's really crazy is how this connects to Luffy's whole journey. If Joy Boy is supposed to return someday, and if the bell is how people will know he's back, then maybe Luffy ringing that bell may be literally announcing his return to whoever or whatever has been waiting for centuries to hear it. The episode shows that Enel is still playing his survival game while all this is happening, but he has no idea what's really going on in the ruins below. He thinks he's the god of this place, but he's just sitting on top of technology and history that's way beyond his understanding. The real power of Skypiea is the communication network that's been hidden underneath the whole time. And honestly, when you think about how sound works in the One Piece world, this theory makes perfect sense. We've seen devil fruits that manipulate sound, dial technology that stores and replays audio, and now we're finding out about ancient cities built around massive bell systems. Maybe the whole world has been connected by sound-based communication networks that we just haven't figured out yet. The fact that the bell is made of gold is probably important too. Gold is one of the best conductors of electricity and sound, which would make it perfect for long-distance communication. If Joy Boy and the Ancient Kingdom had technology that could transmit messages across vast distances, gold would be exactly what they'd use to build their equipment. The episode also shows Robin's flashback to what happened in Alabasta, which connects the dots between different poneglyphs and ancient civilizations. Each place she's been has had pieces of this larger puzzle, and Shandora seems to be where all those pieces come together. The bell might be the central hub that connects everything. What's really interesting is how the episode presents the 4 altars around the belfry. 4 points around a central communication device sounds like exactly what you'd need for some kind of amplification or direction system. Maybe the bell could send different messages to different parts of the world depending on which altar was activated. The way the Shandians have been protecting Upper Yard for 400 years also makes more sense if they know the bell is important for reasons beyond just tradition. They might not understand the technology, but they know that keeping it safe is crucial for something bigger than their own survival. Robin's comment about all the scholarly books being destroyed is key too. Someone went to great lengths to erase written knowledge about Shandora while keeping the physical infrastructure intact. That suggests they wanted to preserve the function while eliminating the understanding of how to use it properly. The positioning of Shandora in the sky also fits with the communication theory. Being 0 meters above sea level would give the bell incredible range for transmitting signals. Sound travels differently at that altitude, and being above the cloud layer would eliminate a lot of interference. The episode shows how carefully Robin handles the discovery, treating it like she's found something world-changing rather than just interesting ruins. Her reaction tells us this is way more important than just another archaeological site, DIT. This is evidence of technology that could reshape everything we know about the One Piece world. What makes this even more believable is how the episode connects the bell to the true history that Robin has been searching for. If the bell really is a communication device left by Joy Boy, then when it finally rings properly, it might not just announce his return. It might actually tell the whole world what really happened during the Void Century. The fact that the city fought to protect the Poneglyph also suggests they knew exactly what they were guarding. This wasn't just about preserving their culture. They were protecting a communication system that could change the course of history when the right person finally activated it. Here's another theory. The Merry Spirit might not just be Klabauterman folklore, but the ship itself carried fragments of the Ancient Kingdom's will. In Season 9, Episode 312, Thank You, Mary. The Sea of Separation in the Snow, we get the emotional goodbye that might reveal way more about consciousness and ancient powers in the One Piece world. The crew is sailing away from Enies Lobby when the Going Merry finally breaks apart. She's been pushed way past her limits, and her keel snaps right down the middle. Everyone knows this is the end. But the weird thing is how the episode shows Mary rescuing them from Enies Lobby like she had her own mind. Frankie explains the Klabauterman legend, ATL, supposedly the spirit of a ship that shows up when the vessel wants to sail just one more time. But Iceberg adds details that make this way more mysterious. He heard banging from Scrap Island where Mary was sitting, then heard a voice saying she wanted to sail one more time. After he fixed her up, the ship literally sailed away by herself. The big moment is Mary's funeral, where Luffy burns her like a Viking burial. As the flames eat up the ship, something crazy happens. Mary's spirit actually talks to the crew. She says sorry for not being able to carry them further, then thanks them for loving her. Right after, the whole crew is crying because they just saw something supernatural happen. But what if Mary's consciousness wasn't just ship spirit stuff? What if she was actually carrying something much older that let her develop a real soul? When you think about the Ancient Kingdom and how they might have made objects with consciousness, things get wild. We know devil fruits can make random objects aware and give them personality. We've seen ancient weapons that seem to have their own thoughts. What if the wood that Mary was built from came from trees that were somehow connected to Ancient Kingdom technology? Think about where Mary came from. She was built on Syrup Village using local wood. But what if that wood wasn't as normal as it looked? The One Piece world has special trees like Treasure Tree Adam. Maybe the wood used for Mary had pieces of ancient consciousness that only woke up when her crew loved her enough. The episode shows Mary's spirit as this sweet, caring thing that really cared about the Straw Hats. That kind of consciousness doesn't just happen randomly. In a world where ancient people had tech that could store thoughts and memories in objects, Mary might have been carrying pieces of that same power without anyone knowing. What makes this theory even crazier is how Mary's awakening happens as the crew visits more important historical places. She starts showing consciousness around Skypiea, where they find ancient technology and poneglyphs. Her spirit gets stronger as they get closer to learning the world's hidden history. The way Mary talks in her final words feels important too. She mentions being happy and knowing they loved her, but there's something deeper in how she speaks. It's like she's something that gets the bigger picture of what the Straw Hats are trying to do. And honestly, when you think about how important ships are in the One Piece world, this makes perfect sense. The ancient people were amazing shipbuilders who made vessels that could sail impossible seas and carry world-changing weapons. Maybe they also found ways to put pieces of consciousness in their ships that could help future generations. The episode also shows how Mary's sacrifice lets the crew keep going on their journey to find the truth about the world. Her final act is making sure they can keep chasing the mysteries the Ancient Kingdom left behind. Maybe that's exactly what she was supposed to do from the start. What's really interesting is how the Thousand Sunny, their next ship, gets built using Treasure Tree Atom wood, Dio, stuff that definitely has special properties. If Mary could develop consciousness from regular wood that might have had ancient pieces in it, imagine what a ship built from legendary materials could do. The way Mary's spirit talks also sounds like how poneglyphs and other ancient stuff works in the series. They store information and will across centuries, waiting for the right person to find them. Maybe Mary was doing the same thing, carrying ancient consciousness that only revealed itself when Luffy's crew proved they were worthy of it. Here's a wild theory. Chopperman might actually be an in-universe propaganda hero used by the Marines to show how pirate legends get twisted into media. In episode 336, Chopperman departs. Protect the TV station by the shore. We get what looks like just a silly filler episode, but it might actually reveal how the world government controls public opinion about pirates. The episode is basically a superhero parody where Tony Chopper becomes Chopperman, a champion of justice who fights against Dr. Usoda Bada and his evil gang. All the Straw Hats get turned into either heroes or villains in this weird alternate universe. But what if this isn't just random comedy? What if we're seeing how the Marines take real pirate stories and turn them into propaganda? Think about what's happening in the episode. Chopper Man is protecting a TV station from villains who look exactly like the other Straw Hat pirates. The show presents Chopper as the good guy, while Zoro, Sanji, and Robin are monsters working for the evil Dr. Usopp, who's obviously Usopp. That's basically the Marines' dream scenario. Nunders turn one pirate against all the others. The main plot revolves around protecting a TV station, which is perfect for spreading propaganda. In the One Piece world, we know the world government controls most of the news through people like Big News Morgans. Having a superhero show that makes pirates look like either heroes, if they work with the government, or villains, if they don't, would be exactly what they'd want. What makes this theory really interesting is how the episode handles the character roles. Chopper becomes the hero because he's the most innocent-looking Straw Hat. Meanwhile, Zoro becomes Zoro Killer, a monster with an onigiri for a head. Sanji becomes Sanji-Rops, a perverted lizard creature. Robin becomes Robafloin, a scary flower woman. The Marines are basically showing how they'd characterize each Straw Hat to the public. The immediate aftermath of the episode shows everything going back to normal, like it was all just a dream or TV show. But what if shows like this actually exist in the One Piece world? What if the Marines really do create superhero propaganda starring modified versions of real pirates to control how people think about them? Looking at the bigger picture, this theory explains a lot about how information gets spread in the One Piece world. The government has always been really good at controlling narratives about pirates, making some look like heroes and others like monsters, depending on what serves their interests. A TV show like Chopper Man would be the perfect way to do that. The episode also shows how easily people can be fooled by media. Everyone in the Chopper Man world treats these characters like they're completely real, even though they're obviously just twisted versions of actual people. That's exactly how propaganda works. You take real events and real people, then change them just enough to serve your message. What's really crazy is how this connects to real bounty posters and wanted pictures in the series. The Marines already control how pirates are presented to the public through bounties and news stories. Adding superhero shows to the mix would just be the next logical step in their propaganda machine. The way the episode presents Dr. Usopp as the main villain is also telling. Usopp is the Straw Hat who tells the most stories and lies, so making him the embodiment of evil in a propaganda show makes perfect sense. The Marines would want to discredit the guy who's best at spreading alternative narratives. And honestly, when you think about how the world government operates, this theory makes total sense. They've been lying to people about the Void Century for 800 years. They control education, news, and even historical records. Adding entertainment media to their propaganda toolkit would be completely natural for them. The fact that this episode exists at all might be Oda's way of commenting on how media can twist reality. By showing us this silly superhero parody, he might actually be revealing how the Marines really do create propaganda to control public opinion about pirates. The timing of when this episode aired is also interesting. It comes right after the Water 7 and Enies Lobby arcs, where the Straw Hats directly fought against the world government. Having a Chopper Man episode right after that could be the Marines' way of trying to rehabilitate their image by showing pirates as either controllable heroes or obvious villains. Look at how the episode treats Luffy, too. Instead of being the main character, he gets turned into the giant Luffy bomber. This massive robot that works for the bad guys but can be controlled by the hero. That's exactly how the Marines would want to portray Luffy, TZI, as this dangerous force that needs to be contained and controlled by the right authority figure. The whole setup with protecting a TV station also makes perfect sense from a propaganda perspective. TV stations are where information gets broadcast to the masses. By making Chopper Man the protector of media infrastructure, the Marines are essentially saying, "We control what you see and hear, and that's a good thing." What's really clever about this theory is how it explains why the Chopperman franchise keeps expanding in the real world. Oda has created multiple Chopperman manga series, special episodes, and even video game appearances. Maybe he's showing us how effective propaganda can become once it takes root, just about Rost. It just keeps growing and spreading until people forget it was ever artificial. The episode also shows how propaganda can make people root for the wrong side without realizing it. Everyone watching Chopper Man thinks they're cheering for justice and good guys, but they're actually supporting a system that turns real people into caricatures for political purposes. That's some next-level social commentary hidden in a kid's superhero show. Another detail that supports this theory is how the Chopper Man universe handles moral complexity. In the real One Piece world, pirates can be good or bad, Marines can be corrupt or honorable. And most situations are pretty gray. But in Chopperman, everything is black and white. Heroes are pure good, villains are pure evil. That's exactly how propaganda works. It removes nuance to make people pick sides. The way the episode presents technology is also suspicious. The villains have giant robots and advanced weapons, while the hero just has cuteness and a cape. This could be the Marines' way of saying, we have all the cool military tech, but don't worry, the good guys will always win through moral superiority. It's classic propaganda messaging. What makes this theory even more believable is how it fits with what we know about Marine psychology. They genuinely believe they're the good guys fighting against chaos and evil. Creating entertainment that reinforces this worldview wouldn't feel like propaganda to them. It would feel like education and truth-telling. The episode ends with Chopper Man saving the day and everyone being happy, which is exactly how propaganda is supposed to work. It makes people feel good about supporting the system while subtly reinforcing the messages the authorities want them to believe. The fact that it's presented as harmless entertainment makes it even more effective. Another theory floating around is that Shanks ended the Marineford War not just out of goodwill, but because of secret ties or leverage with the Gorosei. In episode 489, enter Shanks. The ultimate war ends at last. We see Shanks show up and basically tell everyone to stop fighting, and they actually listen to him, which is pretty weird when you think about it. The episode shows Shanks arriving at Marineford right when everything is falling apart. Luffy is dying, Ace is dead, Whitebeard is dead, and the Marines are still trying to kill everyone. Then Shanks just walks in, and everyone suddenly becomes reasonable. Law escapes with Luffy, Blackbeard leaves, and even Sengoku agrees to let Shanks bury Ace and Whitebeard properly. The build-up to Shanks' arrival is important because it shows how chaotic everything was before he got there. The Marines were going crazy trying to finish off the remaining pirates. Blackbeard was causing more problems, and nobody seemed interested in stopping the violence. But the moment Shanks shows up, the whole tone changes completely. When Shanks confronts everyone and tells them the fighting has become pointless, something really suspicious happens. He draws his sword and basically dares anyone to keep fighting him. The Marines, who were just trying to kill pirates a few minutes ago, suddenly back down. Even more weird is how Sengoku, the fleet admiral, just goes along with Shanks' request to bury the bodies properly. The immediate reaction from everyone shows that Shanks has way more influence than a regular Yonko should have. Mihawk straight up tells the Marines he agreed to fight Whitebeard, but Shanks is different, then just leaves. Blackbeard, who was feeling pretty confident after getting Whitebeard's powers, decides he doesn't want to fight Shanks right now and retreats. That's not normal pirate behavior. The long-term implications get really wild when you think about what we learn later in the series. We find out Shanks can just walk into Maria Joie and have meetings with the Gorosei whenever he wants. That's not something a regular pirate can do, even if they're a Yonko. The world government doesn't negotiate with pirates, they try to destroy them. What makes this theory really compelling is how easily Sengoku agrees to everything Shanks asks for. This guy just spent the entire war trying to execute Ace as a symbol of marine justice. But when Shanks asks to bury him properly, Sengoku immediately says yes. That's either really bad writing or there's something going on behind the scenes. The episode also shows that Shanks had a run-in with Kaido the day before, which means he somehow got past another Yonko to make it to Marineford on time. Either Shanks is way stronger than we thought, or he had help getting there. Maybe the world government actually wanted him to show up and end the war. Think about what the Marines accomplished at Marineford. They killed Whitebeard and Ace, which were their main goals. But they also lost a lot of good soldiers and showed the whole world how chaotic and violent they could be. Having Shanks come in and restore order makes the world government look more reasonable and in control. The way Shanks talks about giving Ace and Whitebeard proper burials also sounds like he's speaking from authority rather than just making a request. He doesn't ask Sengoku for permission than other. He basically tells him, this is what's going to happen, and Sengoku just goes along with it like he was expecting it. The episode ends with Shanks looking sadly at the bodies of Ace and Whitebeard. But there's something calculating about his whole presence at Marineford. He showed up at exactly the right moment to save Luffy, stop Blackbeard from causing more chaos, and help the Marines wrap up the war on their terms. That's way too convenient to be coincidence. And honestly, when you look at how Shanks operates throughout the series, he always seems to know more than he should. He shows up at the right times, talks to the right people, and somehow avoids the kind of conflict with the world government that other Yonko face. Maybe that's because he's working with them in some way. The way Blackbeard reacts to Shanks is also telling. This guy just gained the power to destroy the world. But he takes one look at Shanks and decides he's not ready for that fight yet. Blackbeard mentions the scars Shanks gave him, which shows they have history. But what's really interesting is how quickly Teach backs down, almost like he knows something about Shanks that makes him dangerous in ways beyond just raw power. Look at how the episode presents Shanks' crew too. They're all calm and confident, like they knew exactly how this was going to play out. Lucky Roo even asks if Shanks is going to let Luffy leave without greeting him, which suggests they plan for Luffy to escape. That level of coordination and foresight doesn't happen unless you have inside information. The timing of everything is also super suspicious. Shanks arrives right after Ace dies, but before the Marines can completely destroy the Whitebeard pirates. He stops Blackbeard from getting more Devil Fruit powers or causing additional chaos, and he ensures Luffy escapes safely. It's like he had a checklist of things that needed to happen, and he made sure they all got done. What's really interesting is how the episode shows different characters reacting to Shanks' presence. The younger Marines are shocked and scared, but the higher-ups like Sengoku seem almost relieved. It's like the leadership was waiting for someone to give them an excuse to stop the fighting without looking weak. The way Shanks handles Buggy is also worth examining. He uses a treasure map to manipulate Buggy into helping Luffy escape, which shows he came prepared with leverage for multiple scenarios. That kind of detailed planning suggests he knew exactly what was going to happen at Marineford before he even got there. Another detail that supports this theory is how Shanks talks about the war becoming pointless. He doesn't say the Marines are wrong or that pirates deserve better treatment. He just says the fighting has gone on long enough and both sides have taken enough losses. That's the kind of neutral language someone would use if they were trying to broker a deal rather than pick a side. The episode also shows how quickly everything returns to normal after Shanks speaks. The Marines stop attacking, the pirates stop fighting back, and everyone just starts cleaning up the mess. That kind of instant de-escalation doesn't happen naturally in war situations, anyway. It requires advanced planning and coordination between the parties involved. Another theory is that Rayleigh designed the 2-year separation to test whether the Straw Hats' bonds were strong enough to survive the New World. In episode 517, a new chapter begins. The Straw Hat crew reunites. We see the crew coming back together after 2 years apart, and there might be way more planning behind this reunion than it looks like. The episode opens with each Straw Hat finishing up their training in different places around the world. Luffy is leaving Amazon Lily after learning Haki, Zoro shows up first at Sabaody, and the others slowly make their way back to the meeting point. But the episode shows Rayleigh and Shakuyaku just casually talking about the crew's return like they've been watching the whole thing. The build-up to the reunion has each crew member dealing with problems on Sabaody while fake Straw Hats are running around causing trouble. Nami and Usopp team up to beat the imposters. Robin is dodging some mysterious people chasing her, and everyone has to get around this dangerous island while hiding from Marines. It's like they're being tested to see if they can handle threats both by themselves and as smaller groups. When the crew members start bumping into each other, something cool happens. They don't just immediately group up and find Luffy. Instead, they have to work through different problems on the island first. Nami and Usopp fight fake Straw Hats together, showing their teamwork is still solid. Everyone seems way more confident and skilled than before, but they're also being forced to prove it. Right after seeing the crew back together, you can tell how much they've grown, but also how their main relationships haven't changed. Nami still knows Usopp right away and welcomes him warmly. They work together naturally against the fake crew, but the episode also shows them dealing with new challenges that test whether their bonds are still strong after 2 years apart. When you think about what this theory means long-term, it changes how we look at the whole time skip. Maybe Rayleigh wanted to see if they'd actually come back, if they'd still work well together, and if they could handle being separated and reunited without falling apart. The New World is going to test their relationships in ways the first half of the Grand Line never did. What makes this theory really believable is how the episode shows Rayleigh's role. He's calmly talking about it with Shakuyaku, like everything is going exactly as planned. That level of confidence means he knew exactly what would happen when he scattered them across the world. The fact that the crew has to deal with fake versions of themselves is also pretty interesting. It's like a test to see if they remember who they really are and what they stand for after 2 years of being apart. The fake Straw Hats represent what the crew could become if they lost their way: violent, greedy, and willing to hurt innocent people. Look at how each crew member handles their individual problems on Sabaody. They're all way more powerful than before, but they're also still basically the same people with the same values. That consistency after 2 years of separation shows their bonds were strong enough to survive the test. The episode also shows that the crew still naturally moves toward each other. Even though they're supposed to stay hidden, they end up in situations where they have to work together. Nami and Usopp find each other and immediately start working as a team. That's exactly what Rayleigh would want to see. What's really interesting is how the episode handles the reunion timing. Everyone shows up around the same time, but through different situations. That kind of coordination doesn't happen by accident. Means someone was managing the timing to make sure they'd all be ready to come back together at once. The way Rayleigh talks about the crew also supports this theory. He doesn't just hope they'll get stronger, he seems confident they'll pass whatever test the New World throws at them. That confidence has to come from somewhere, and the most logical explanation is that he designed the separation to prepare them for exactly those challenges. And honestly, when you think about what the crew faces in the New World, this theory makes perfect sense. They're going to deal with Yonko, world government agents, and situations that could easily tear a weaker crew apart. Rayleigh needed to make sure their bonds were unbreakable before they entered that level of danger. The episode shows how each member has developed their own skills and confidence, but they still instantly click when they work together. Nami and Usopp's fight against the fake crew is smooth and natural, like they never stopped being partners. That's not something that happens automatically after 2 years apart, unless the foundation was really solid. What's also worth noting is how the fake Straw Hats serve as a contrast to the real crew. The fakes are violent, disrespectful, and treat people badly. When the real Nami and Usopp deal with them, they show restraint and teamwork. They could have just destroyed everyone in the bar, but they handled the situation cleanly and left without causing unnecessary harm. The way the episode presents Brook's world tour is also interesting. He's become famous and successful, but he's still planning to return to his crew. That shows his loyalty wasn't affected by fame or fortune, which is exactly the kind of thing Rayleigh would want to test. A weaker bond might have been broken by 2 years of success and independence. Chopper's scenes also support this theory. He's walking around Sabaody looking more confident and capable, but he's still the same innocent, food-loving reindeer. His core personality didn't change despite all his medical training. That consistency shows the crew's individual identities were strong enough to survive the separation. The episode ends with Luffy accidentally bumping into his fake version, which sets up a confrontation between real and fake. This could represent the final test. Can Luffy still represent what the Straw Hats really stand for after 2 years of growth and change? Based on what we see, the answer is definitely yes. Another theory going around is that the imposter Luffy might actually be a failed pacifista or clone experiment by the Marines to mess with Luffy's reputation. In episode 518, A Hair Trigger, Luffy versus Fake Luffy, we see this confrontation that might reveal way more about Marine experimentation than just some wannabe pirate trying to get famous. The episode shows the fake Luffy acting completely different from the real one. He's violent, threatening innocent people, and shooting random civilians for no reason. This guy has been running around Sabaody for who knows how long, doing terrible things while using Luffy's name and reputation. But what if that was the whole point? The build-up to their confrontation is really interesting, because it shows how different they are. Real Luffy is trying to stay low-key and avoid trouble, remembering what Elder Nyan told him about Marines heavily guarding Sabaody. Meanwhile, fake Luffy is causing chaos everywhere he goes, making people fear and hate anyone associated with the Straw Hat name. When they finally meet face-to-face, the fake threatens Luffy and demands an apology for bumping into him. The crowd is actually encouraging real Luffy to apologize to save his life, which shows how much fear fake Luffy has been spreading around the island. But real Luffy just ignores him and walks forward, bumping into him again. That's when fake Luffy shoots him. The main event happens when real Luffy dodges the bullet using his observation haki and then releases his Conqueror's haki, instantly knocking out fake Luffy and his whole crew. The people watching are completely confused about what just happened. 1 second fake Luffy is this scary, threatening guy. The next second he's unconscious on the ground. Right after this happens, you can see how much damage fake Luffy has done to the real Luffy's reputation. People were genuinely afraid of him and expected real Luffy to be just as violent and dangerous. But when real Luffy shows his actual power and personality, it completely destroys the fake's credibility. Looking at the bigger picture, this theory makes a lot of sense when you think about how the Marines operate. They've been trying to control Luffy's image since he first got a bounty. Having a fake version running around committing crimes and terrorizing people would be perfect for making the public turn against him. What's really suspicious is how organized the whole fake crew operation seems to be. They have imposters for every single Straw Hat member. They're recruiting new pirates to join them, and they've been operating on Sabaody for a while. That level of coordination doesn't happen by accident. It takes planning and resources. The episode also shows that fake Luffy has been specifically targeting couples and innocent people, shooting them for minor complaints. That's exactly the kind of behavior that would make people hate pirates in general, and Luffy specifically. It's like someone designed him to be as unlikable as possible, while wearing Luffy's face. The timing is also perfect from the Marines' perspective. Right when the real Straw Hats are supposed to return to Sabaody, there's already a fake crew there, ruining their reputation and making people afraid of them. That would make it much harder for the real crew to operate or find allies. What makes this theory even more believable is how quickly fake Luffy goes down when faced with real power. Real Luffy doesn't even have to fight him. Just one burst of Conqueror's haki, and it's over. That suggests fake Luffy was never meant to actually fight the real one, just damage his reputation until the Marines could capture the real crew. The way the episode presents the fake crew also supports this theory. They're not just random pirates trying to get famous. They have specific knowledge about each Straw Hat member, and they're actively trying to recruit people using the Straw Hat name. That kind of detailed impersonation takes serious intelligence gathering. And honestly, when you think about all the other experiments the Marines have been doing, pacifistas, cloning, devil fruit research, yes, Creating fake versions of wanted pirates to damage their reputations would be a logical next step. It's psychological warfare disguised as random crime. The episode shows something else that's pretty weird, how the fake crew tries to replace their fake chopper with the real one when they realize who he is. That's not normal pirate behavior. Most crews would either run away from a real Straw Hat or try to capture him for the bounty. But these guys want to integrate him into their fake operation, which sounds more like an intelligence mission than piracy. Another detail that supports this theory is how the fake Luffy talks about his background. He mentions being Dragon's son to try to intimidate Nami earlier, which shows he has access to classified information that regular pirates wouldn't know. The world government has been keeping Luffy's parentage secret, so how would some random imposter know about it? The way the episode handles the crowd's reaction is also telling. These people are convinced he's the real deal, and they know specific details about his supposed crimes. That kind of widespread misinformation doesn't spread naturally. It takes a coordinated effort to make sure everyone believes the same false story. Look at how fake Luffy handles weapons too. He's quick to shoot people and seems comfortable with violence, but he goes down instantly when faced with real power. That's exactly what you'd expect from someone who was created to look dangerous but wasn't actually built for real combat. More like a propaganda tool than a real threat. The episode also shows that the fake crew has been operating long enough to become well-known around Sabaody. That takes time and resources to maintain. Random pirates trying to get famous usually get caught or killed pretty quickly. But this operation has been running smoothly, which suggests they have protection or backing from someone powerful. What's really interesting is how the fake crew members all have access to decent equipment and seem well-funded. Fake Luffy has a gun, fake Robin has her powers somehow, and they all look well-fed and equipped. That level of support doesn't come from just pretending to be famous pirates. It requires serious financial backing. The timing of when this whole fake crew thing started is also suspicious. They showed up right around the time the real Straw Hats were supposed to return, which means someone was tracking their movements and planning accordingly. That kind of intelligence gathering is way beyond what random pirates could pull off. Here's another theory. The split climate on Punk Hazard was actually a testing ground for ancient technology, possibly a prototype for weather weapons. In episode 579, Landing, the Burning Island, Punk Hazard, we get our first look at this weird island that might be hiding way more advanced tech than anyone realizes. The Straw Hats are sailing through the New World when they spot this burning island that doesn't show up on any of their log pose needles. Right away, that's a red flag because log poses are supposed to detect all magnetic islands. But Punk Hazard seems to exist outside the normal navigation system, which means something is seriously messing with the natural magnetic fields. The build-up to landing on the island shows just how unnatural everything is. The whole place is surrounded by a sea of fire that would normally be impossible to cross. Nami has to use her cloud powers to create a safe path for them to even get close. When they arrive, they find out it's a restricted government facility that's been completely abandoned. The main discovery happens when the crew starts exploring and realizes the island has this completely split climate system. One side is burning hot with constant fires everywhere, and the other side has Arctic conditions with snow and ice. Frankie even comments that this kind of climate split shouldn't be possible on a single island. Right after they land, the crew realizes they're dealing with something way beyond normal weather patterns. The whole island is basically two different environments that have been artificially maintained for who knows how long. The fires are constant and controlled, like someone designed them to stay that way forever. Looking at the long-term implications, this theory connects Punk Hazard to all the other ancient technology we've seen in the series. If the ancient kingdom really did have weather control capabilities, then Punk Hazard could be where the world government tried to reverse engineer that technology. The split climate might be the result of failed experiments trying to recreate ancient weather weapons. What makes this theory really compelling is how the episode presents the island as a former government facility. The world government doesn't just abandon important research sites unless something went seriously wrong. If they were experimenting with weather control technology and lost control of it, that would explain why the whole place got restricted and left to burn. The fact that the island doesn't show up on log poses also supports this theory. Ancient technology in the One Piece world often operates outside normal physical laws. If Punk Hazard is running on ancient weather control systems, it might be generating its own magnetic field that interferes with navigation equipment. Think about what weather weapons could do in the One Piece world. You could create massive storms to destroy enemy fleets, cause droughts to starve entire countries, or freeze seas to block trade routes. That kind of power would be exactly what the world government would want to control, and exactly what they'd want to keep secret. The episode also shows that the island has been in this split state for a long time. The infrastructure is still there, but everything is abandoned and overgrown. That suggests whatever experiments they were doing either succeeded too well and became uncontrollable, or failed so badly that they had to evacuate everyone. The way the episode presents the island's environment also feels artificial. Real volcanic islands don't have perfectly controlled fire zones, and real Arctic regions don't exist right next to burning deserts. The whole setup screams advanced technology rather than natural phenomena. And honestly, when you think about all the other crazy weather we've seen in the One Piece world, knock-up streams, eternal storms, islands with permanent winter, most of it could be explained by ancient weather control technology that's still running but no longer properly maintained. The timing of when this facility was abandoned is also suspicious. It's been restricted for years, which means the experiments probably failed sometime after the world government was established. Maybe they found ancient blueprints for weather weapons and tried to build their own versions, only to discover they couldn't control the technology properly. What's really interesting is how the episode shows that normal people can't even approach the island safely. The Sea of Fire creates a natural barrier that keeps everyone away, unless they have special abilities like Nami's cloud powers. That kind of defensive system would be perfect for protecting secret research from outside interference. The episode also hints that there's way more going on beneath the surface. When they receive that distress call, it's coming from inside the facility, which means people are still somehow surviving in this impossible environment. That could mean there are underground areas where the climate control systems are still partially functional. Look at how the world government handles information about Punk Hazard too. The island is completely restricted, and they clearly don't want anyone knowing what happened there. That level of secrecy doesn't happen for normal accidents. You need EA. It happens when you're covering up failed experiments with dangerous technology. The way the episode shows the dragon at the end is also suspicious. Dragons don't naturally exist in the One Piece world, so finding one on a former government research facility raises a lot of questions about what kind of experiments they were really doing there. Maybe weather control was just one part of a larger program to recreate ancient technologies. Another detail that supports this theory is how the episode shows Smoker immediately heading toward Punk Hazard when he intercepts the distress call. That suggests the Marines have been monitoring the island and know more about what's happening there than they let on. Maybe they're still trying to salvage whatever research was left behind. The split between fire and ice could also represent the two extremes of weather control technology. If the ancient weapons could create both massive heat and freezing cold, then Punk Hazard might be where they tried to test both systems at once. When the experiment went wrong, it left the island permanently split between the two extremes. What's really crazy is how this connects to other islands we've seen with weird weather patterns. Drum Island with its eternal winter, Alabasta with its unnatural drought cycles, even Little Garden with its unchanging prehistoric climate, 22. All of these could be the result of ancient weather control technology that's still partially active. The episode ends with the crew encountering that dragon, which raises even more questions about what the world government was really doing on Punk Hazard. If they were experimenting with ancient weather technology, they might have also been trying to recreate other aspects of the lost civilization, including the creatures that lived during that time. Another theory is that Katakuri's fight is deliberate narrative mirroring, with Oda showing the Pirate King Luffy could be if he chose discipline over freedom. In episode 852, a hard battle starts. Luffy versus Katakuri. We see this confrontation that might be way more symbolic than just a regular boss fight. The episode shows Katakuri completely beating down Luffy in the mirror world. Every attack Luffy throws, Katakuri has a bigger, stronger version. Elephant Gun gets smashed by an even bigger Mochi Fist. Grizzly Magnum gets crushed by two massive Mochi Fists. Gigant Axe gets dodged and punished with an enormous Mochi Foot. It's like Katakuri is showing Luffy what he could become if he perfected his abilities. The setup to this fight has been showing us how similar these two actually are. Both have crazy observation haki, both are super strong physically, and both care about their crews. But Katakuri represents discipline and control, while Luffy represents chaos and freedom. The mirror world setting is literally showing Luffy a reflection of himself. During their clash, something really cool happens. Katakuri tells Luffy he sees no victory in his future, and his men think Luffy is already done for. But that's exactly what people used to say about Katakuri himself before he became perfect. The episode shows Katakuri as this flawless warrior who never loses, never falls on his back, never lets anyone see him as weak. Right after Katakuri beats Luffy down, we get the scene with Perospero mocking Pedro's sacrifice and saying it was all pointless. When Luffy hears this, he gets back up and tries attacking again, even though he's clearly getting destroyed. That moment shows the main difference between them. Katakuri fights for perfection and control, while Luffy fights for his friends and freedom. When you think about what this theory means long-term, it changes how we look at Luffy's whole journey. Maybe becoming Pirate King is about staying true to yourself, even when facing someone who represents everything you could become if you gave up what makes you unique. What makes this theory really believable is how the episode shows their fighting styles. Katakuri has perfected versions of everything Luffy does, but they're cold and calculated. Luffy's attacks are wild and unpredictable, but they come from real emotion. It's like seeing two different paths to power, one through discipline, one through passion. The way Katakuri talks during the fight also backs up this theory. He keeps pointing out how he's stronger than Luffy in every way. Like he's trying to convince Luffy to give up his chaotic approach and become more like him. But every time Luffy gets back up, it proves that strength isn't just about being perfect. Look at what's happening outside the mirror world too. Sanji, Pudding, and Chiffon are working together to make a cake that will save everyone, even though they barely know each other and have every reason not to trust each other. That's pure Luffy energy, bringing people together through shared goals rather than fear or control. The episode also shows how Katakuri's perfection comes with a price. He has to keep up this image of never failing, never showing weakness, never being anything less than flawless. Meanwhile, Luffy fails all the time but keeps getting back up because he doesn't care about looking perfect. He cares about protecting his friends. What's really interesting is how the mirror world itself works as a metaphor. Mirrors show you a reflection, but it's reversed. Everything is backwards. Maybe Katakuri represents what Luffy would look like if all his good traits got flipped into their opposite versions. Determination becomes rigid control. Loyalty becomes suffocating protection. Strength becomes oppressive dominance. The timing of this fight in the overall story is also important. Luffy is getting close to becoming a Yonko himself, which means he's approaching the level where he could rule through fear and power like other emperors. But facing Katakuri shows him that path isn't who he wants to be. And honestly, when you think about what being Pirate King really means in the One Piece world, it's not about being the strongest or most disciplined pirate. Roger wasn't the most powerful guy around, but he was the freest. Luffy's chaotic, emotional approach to piracy might actually be exactly what's needed to find the One Piece. The episode shows how Katakuri's crew respects him out of fear and awe, while Luffy's crew follows him out of love and trust. When Katakuri's men cheer for him beating down Luffy, it feels cold and distant. Compare that to how the Straw Hats react when Luffy fights. They're genuinely worried about him as a person, not just as their captain. Another detail that supports this theory is how Katakuri uses his future sight. He sees what's coming and prevents it, trying to control every outcome. Luffy barely uses his observation. Aki consciously, he just reacts in the moment, based on instinct and emotion. It's two completely different philosophies about how to handle power. The way the episode handles their physical appearances is also telling. Katakuri is this tall, imposing figure who looks perfect and intimidating. Luffy is short, goofy-looking, and covered in scars from all his failures. But those scars represent growth and learning, while Katakuri's perfection represents stagnation. What's crazy is how the episode shows that Katakuri's perfection might actually be holding him back. He's so focused on maintaining his image that he can't take risks or show vulnerability. Luffy's willingness to fail and look stupid actually makes him stronger because he learns from every mistake. The episode ends with Katakuri still totally in control while Luffy is getting beaten down. But that dynamic is exactly what makes this fight so important. It's not about who wins or loses. It's about Luffy proving that his way of doing things has value, even when facing someone who seems better in every way. Don't forget to subscribe if you're enjoying our video. Another theory is that Enma is actually a relic forged in the Void Century, tied directly to Joy Boy's war. In episode 954, its name is Enma, Odin's Great Swords. We get the introduction to this legendary blade that might be way more ancient and important than anyone realizes. The episode shows us Kawamatsu's backstory about protecting the burial grounds in Ringo with Onimaru the fox. They've been guarding swords from graves because these weapons supposedly contain the souls of dead samurai who can help their wielders in battle. But when Hiyori offers Zoro the Enma sword in exchange for Shusui, she mentions something crucial. This is the only sword that ever successfully injured Kaido. The build-up to Enma's reveal comes through learning about Wano's history and how swords work in this country. The episode shows us that Wano has this deep spiritual connection between warriors and their blades, where the sword literally carries the owner's soul. Enma belonged to Odin, who was strong enough to wound Kaido. But what if the sword's power goes way deeper than just Odin's strength? When Hiyori presents Enma to Zoro, the episode treats it like this legendary artifact that's been waiting for the right person. The sword has a reputation for being incredibly dangerous and difficult to control, almost like it has its own will. That level of consciousness in a weapon sounds a lot like the ancient technology we've seen throughout the series. Right after getting introduced to Enma, we learn that it's capable of doing something no other sword has done, actually hurting Kaido, who's supposed to be nearly invincible. That kind of power doesn't come from normal sword-making techniques. It sounds more like ancient technology that was specifically designed to fight against incredibly powerful enemies. When you think about what this theory means long-term, it connects Enma to the bigger mysteries of the One Piece world. If Joy Boy really did fight a war during the Void Century, he would have needed weapons capable of taking down enemies with godlike power. Enma might be one of those ancient weapons. passed down through generations until it ended up with Odin in Wano. What makes this theory really interesting is how the episode shows Wano's isolation from the rest of the world. This country has been closed off for centuries, which would be the perfect place to hide ancient weapons and technology. The world government can't get in to destroy evidence, so artifacts from the Void Century could have survived here. The way Enma is described as having its own personality also fits with ancient technology in the One Piece world. We've seen devil fruits give consciousness to objects, ancient weapons that seem to have their own will, and now we have a sword that's almost impossible to control. That sounds like technology from a civilization that understood consciousness in ways we haven't seen yet. Look at how the episode presents the spiritual connection between samurai and their swords too. This sounds like these people have access to technology that can actually store human consciousness in weapons. That kind of advanced understanding of souls and spirits would be exactly what you'd expect from the ancient kingdom. The fact that Enma specifically wounded Kaido is also huge. Kaido seems to have some connection to ancient times, and might even be from that era himself. A sword that can hurt him would need to be made with knowledge of whatever makes him so powerful, which points to it being created during the same time period. And honestly, when you think about how many ancient artifacts have ended up in Wano, this theory makes perfect sense. Pluton's blueprints were hidden here. Poneglyph carving techniques originated here. And now, we're finding weapons that can hurt, supposedly invincible beings. This country is basically a museum of Void Century technology. The episode ends with Zoro getting Enma, which means he's now carrying a weapon that might be directly connected to Joy Boy's original war. If Luffy really is Joy Boy's successor, then having his right-hand man wield an ancient weapon from that same conflict creates this perfect symbolic connection between past and present. What's really wild is how this connects to Zoro's goal of becoming the world's greatest swordsman. If Enma really is an ancient weapon designed for fighting gods and monsters, then mastering it would definitely put him on the level he needs to reach. It's like the sword chose him specifically because he's the right person to fulfill its original purpose. The timing of when Zoro gets Enma is also perfect. They're about to fight Kaido, who might be connected to whatever conflict happened during the Void Century. Having an ancient weapon that was specifically designed to fight enemies like him could be exactly what they need to finally bring down this seemingly invincible emperor. The way the episode shows the exchange between Hiyori and Zoro also feels significant. She's giving up her father's sword to someone she barely knows, which suggests she understands that Enma has a destiny beyond just being a family heirloom. Maybe the Kozuki family has been protecting this ancient weapon for generations, waiting for the right person to claim it. Another detail that supports this theory is how the episode presents the relationship between Enma and Ame no Habakiri, Odin's other sword. If both swords were from the same ancient source, it would explain why Odin was able to become so incredibly powerful. He was wielding weapons that were designed for fighting in wars between gods. The episode also shows how Kawamatsu and Onimaru were protecting all these swords from grave robbers, treating them like sacred relics rather than just weapons. That level of reverence makes more sense if these swords really do contain ancient technology or consciousness, rather than just being well-made blades. What's really interesting is how the episode handles the reveal that Onimaru could transform between fox and human forms. That kind of shape-shifting ability sounds like something connected to ancient powers or devil fruits. Maybe he was specifically chosen to guard these weapons because he had the power needed to protect such important artifacts. The way Enma is described as being almost impossible to control also fits with ancient technology theory. If it was designed during the Void Century, it might operate on principles that modern people don't understand. Only someone with the right kind of will or destiny would be able to master a weapon that complex. Another theory is that Laboon is actually going to play a direct role in the final saga, possibly ferrying the Straw Hats across the last stretch of the Grand Line. In episode 62, The First Obstacle, giant whale Laboon appears. We get introduced to this massive whale that might be way more important to the endgame than just being a touching reunion story. The episode shows the Straw Hats entering the Grand Line and immediately running into Laboon, this enormous island whale who's been ramming his head against the Red Line for 50 years. Crocus explains that Laboon is waiting for a certain group of pirates who left him behind decades ago. The whale is so heartbroken that he's literally trying to break through a mountain to find his friends. The build-up to meeting Laboon involves the crew getting swallowed by him after Luffy punches him in the eye. Inside, they find Crocus living in this elaborate setup with painted skies and an artificial island. The whole thing shows just how massive and unique Laboon is. He's basically a living ship that can house people and travel anywhere in the ocean. When Crocus tells the story about why Laboon keeps hitting the Red Line, he reveals that this whale has been waiting for 50 years for the Rumbar pirates to return. But here's the thing. Laboon is an island whale, the largest species in the world, and he's clearly intelligent enough to understand complex emotions like loyalty and hope. Right after learning Laboon's story, Luffy makes a promise to come back and fight him again after sailing around the Grand Line. This seems like just a sweet moment. But what if it's actually foreshadowing? Luffy promises to return, which means their paths will cross again when the Straw Hats complete their journey. When you think about what this theory means long-term, the implications are huge for what the final saga might involve. If the Straw Hats need to cross the Red Line or travel to some impossible location, having a whale the size of an island would be incredibly useful. Laboon could literally carry their entire fleet and army wherever they need to go. What makes this theory really compelling is how the episode shows Laboon's incredible size and strength. This whale can ram into the Red Line hard enough to cause earthquakes, and he's been doing it for 50 years without getting tired. That level of power and endurance would be perfect for some massive final battle or journey. The way the episode presents Laboon's intelligence is also important. He understands human emotions, remembers his friends after decades, and can even recognize when people are trying to help him. That kind of consciousness means he could definitely understand and participate in whatever plan the Straw Hats might need him for. Think about the geography of the One Piece world too. The Red Line circles the entire planet, and getting past it has always been a major obstacle. But if you had a whale powerful enough to break through it or swim around it, you could access areas that are normally impossible to reach. The episode also shows how Laboon has been protecting himself from people who want to hurt him, like Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday who tried to kill him for food. But he immediately trusts the Straw Hats because they show him genuine care and respect. That bond could be exactly what they need to convince him to help them later. And honestly, when you think about all the other promises and connections the Straw Hats have made throughout their journey, most of them come back to help during important moments. Laboon's promise with Luffy feels too significant to just be a one-time emotional moment. The way the episode ends with Luffy painting a new Jolly Roger on Laboon's head is also symbolic. He's literally marking the whale as connected to their crew, which could foreshadow Laboon becoming an official ally or even crew member in some way. What's really interesting is how this connects to Brook's backstory when we meet him later. Brook's whole motivation is getting back to Laboon, but what if their reunion is actually the key to Laboon joining the final battle? Brook could be the one who convinces Laboon to help save the world. The episode shows that Laboon has been waiting at the entrance to the Grand Line for 50 years, which means he's in the perfect position to help anyone who needs to travel between the different seas. If the final conflict involves multiple locations around the world, Laboon could be the transportation method that makes it all possible. Another detail that supports this theory is how the episode shows Crocus living inside Laboon and treating him like a patient. That medical knowledge could be crucial if Laboon needs to be prepared for some kind of massive journey or battle. Crocus might have been keeping him healthy, specifically for this purpose. The way Laboon reacts to Luffy's promise is also telling. He stops ramming his head against the Red Line and seems to find peace for the first time in decades. That suggests he understands that Luffy will actually come back, which means he's willing to wait and prepare for whatever comes next. Look at how the episode presents the inside of Laboon too. There's enough space for buildings, artificial weather systems, and multiple people to live comfortably. If the Straw Hats needed to transport a large group of allies, or even evacuate people during a global crisis, Laboon could literally be a mobile city. The episode also shows how Laboon can control when to surface and submerge, which means he could help people travel underwater to avoid detection. That kind of stealth capability would be incredibly valuable if the final conflict involves sneaking past enemy forces. What's really wild is how this theory connects to other massive creatures we've seen in the series. Sea Kings, Zunisha the elephant, even the giant goldfish from Long Ring Longland, all of these creatures end up playing important roles in major events. Laboon fits perfectly into this pattern. The timing of when Luffy meets Laboon is also significant. This happens right at the beginning of their Grand Line journey, which means Oda was setting up this connection from the very start. That level of long-term planning suggests Laboon really will be important later. Another theory is that Smoker's refusal to obey blind orders hints at a split in Marine ideology, and he foreshadows Marine factions that will side with Luffy in the final war. In episode 94, Reunion of the Powerful, his name is Fire Fist Ace. We see some early signs of this moral conflict that might be setting up a major split in the Marines. The episode shows Smoker in Nanohana hunting for Luffy, but something interesting happens when he encounters Ace. Even though Ace is a 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates, one of the most wanted criminals in the world, Smoker seems more focused on Luffy than capturing this huge target that just fell into his lap. The build-up to the confrontation shows Smoker operating pretty independently from normal Marine procedures. He's carrying around small-time pirates he captured himself instead of working with the local forces. When Tashigi lectures a shopkeeper about overpricing swords, it shows both of them care more about doing what's right than just following orders. When Ace and Smoker actually fight, something really telling happens. Ace stops Smoker's attack to protect Luffy, and when Smoker asks why he's helping the Straw Hats, Ace says a big brother has to help his little brother. Smoker could have kept fighting or called for backup, but instead, he just lets them all escape. That's not normal Marine behavior when facing major criminals. Right after this encounter, Smoker basically gives up the chase, even though he had both Luffy and Ace right there. For a guy who's supposed to be obsessed with capturing Luffy, he sure doesn't try very hard when he actually has the chance. It's like he's starting to question whether catching these particular pirates is really the right thing to do. Looking at the long-term implications, this episode might be showing us the early stages of Smoker, realizing that the world government and Marines aren't always on the right side. Throughout the series, we see him getting more and more frustrated with corrupt officials and questionable orders from his superiors. What makes this theory compelling is how the episode presents Smoker's character. He's clearly not a typical Marine who just follows orders without thinking. He has his own sense of justice and morals, which sometimes conflict with what the Marines want him to do. That internal struggle is exactly what you'd expect from someone who might eventually switch sides. The way Smoker reacts to learning that Ace and Luffy are brothers is also interesting. He doesn't seem surprised that a Whitebeard commander would protect Luffy, and almost like he already suspected there was more to the Straw Hats than just being regular criminals. Think about what we know about Smoker from other parts of the series too. He consistently shows respect for honest pirates and gets angry at corrupt Marines. He saved Luffy at Marineford and has worked with him multiple times when their goals align. This episode is basically the first time we see that moral flexibility. The episode also shows Tashigi having similar conflicts about what's right versus what's ordered. When she's lecturing the shopkeeper about sword prices, she's putting justice above Marine business. That same attitude could easily lead her to question bigger orders if they conflict with her sense of right and wrong. And honestly, when you think about the final war that's been building up throughout the series, the Marines are going to have to pick sides. Some will stay loyal to the world government no matter what, but others will choose to fight for actual justice. Smoker and Tashigi seem like perfect candidates to lead that rebellion. The way this episode handles the encounter also shows that Smoker isn't really trying that hard to capture Luffy anymore. He goes through the motions because it's his job, but when push comes to shove, he doesn't seem that committed to actually stopping him. That suggests he's already starting to see Luffy as less of a criminal and more of a force for good. What's really interesting is how the episode sets up this pattern of Marines having to choose between duty and morality. We see it with Smoker not pursuing Ace, with Tashigi caring more about fairness than profit, and later we'll see it with other Marines throughout the series. This episode might be the first hint that the Marines are heading for a civil war. The way Smoker talks to Ace during their fight is also worth examining. He asks why Ace is helping the Straw Hats like he genuinely wants to understand, rather than just fighting because they're enemies. That curiosity about Pirate's motivations shows he's already thinking beyond simple black and white justice. Another detail that supports this theory is how Smoker handles the restaurant situation. When Luffy crashes through the building and causes chaos, Smoker's first instinct is to pursue him rather than help the people who got hurt. But later, we see Ace apologizing to families for the disturbance. That contrast might make Smoker question whether he's really on the right side. The episode also shows how both Smoker and Tashigi operate with more independence than typical Marines. They make their own decisions about what's worth pursuing and what's worth ignoring. That kind of independent thinking is exactly what would lead someone to eventually question orders from corrupt superiors. Look at how Smoker reacts when Luffy tells him he's in Arabasta to beat up Crocodile 2. Instead of dismissing it as pirate nonsense, he actually asks follow-up questions about their connection. That shows he's willing to consider that pirates might have legitimate reasons for their actions. The timing of this encounter is also significant. This happens right before the Arabasta arc really gets going, where we'll see massive corruption in the world government through Crocodile's warlord status. Smoker witnessing that corruption firsthand probably reinforces the doubts that start in this episode. What makes this theory even more believable is how the episode shows the difference between Smoker's personal sense of justice and official Marine doctrine. He cares about protecting innocent people and stopping real criminals. But the world government often prioritizes political goals over actual justice. That conflict will only get worse as the series progresses. The way the episode ends with Smoker just watching the Straw Hats escape also suggests he's already starting to respect them on some level. A purely duty-driven Marine would keep chasing or call for backup, but Smoker seems content to let this particular battle end in a draw. Subscribe if you're enjoying our content. Another theory is that Hiruluck's miracle cherry blossoms foreshadow the eventual curing of the incurable disease of the world, corruption and oppression itself. In episode 86, Hiruluck's cherry blossoms and inherited will, we see this symbolic moment that might represent way more than just one doctor's dream. The episode shows us more of Chopper's tragic backstory. With Dr. Hiruluck, Chopper accidentally feeds Hiruluck a poisonous mushroom thinking it would cure his disease, while Hiruluck goes to face Wapol knowing it's a trap. The whole situation shows how both characters are trying to heal something that seems impossible to fix: Hiruluck's terminal illness and Drum Island's corrupt leadership. The build-up to Hiraluk's final moment involves him walking into Wapol's obvious trap because he thinks the Ishi-20 doctors are sick and need his help. Even though he's dying from the poison mushroom and knows Wapol wants to execute him, he still goes because helping people is more important to him than his own life. That level of selfless dedication to healing others sets up what happens next. When Hiraluk realizes he's been tricked and there are no sick doctors to help, he gives his famous speech about when people truly die. Then he blows himself up, rather than let Wapol have the satisfaction of executing him. But here's the important part. His sacrifice inspires others to carry on his will, starting with Dalton, and eventually leading to Chopper becoming a doctor. Right after Hiraluk's death, the episode shows Chopper running to try and save him, but arriving too late. Dalton stops him from fighting and getting killed, promising to carry on Hiraluk's legacy. That moment shows how Hiraluk's ideals about healing and helping people start spreading to others, even though he's gone. Looking at the bigger picture, this theory connects Hiraluk's cherry blossoms to the main themes of One Piece. Throughout the series, we see corrupt governments, oppressive rulers, and systems that hurt innocent people. But we also see how individuals with strong wills can inspire change and eventually overcome even the most entrenched evil. What makes this theory compelling is how the episode presents Hiraluk's belief that there's no disease that can't be cured. He's talking about his own illness, but the way he phrases it sounds like a universal truth. Maybe the incurable disease he's really fighting is the corruption and cruelty that people like Wapol represent. The cherry blossoms themselves are symbolic of renewal and hope. In Japanese culture, they represent the beauty and fragility of life, but also the idea that beautiful things can bloom even in harsh conditions. Hiraluk's dream of seeing cherry blossoms on Drum Island represents his hope that even the coldest, most hopeless places can be transformed. Think about how this connects to what Luffy does throughout the series. Every island he visits has some kind of corruption or oppression that seems impossible to fix. But Luffy and his crew always find a way to heal these diseases through their actions and by inspiring others to fight for what's right. The episode shows how Hiraluk's will gets passed down to Chopper, who becomes an incredible doctor dedicated to saving lives. But maybe that's just the beginning. Maybe Chopper will eventually be part of something bigger, a movement that heals the entire world from the corruption that the world government represents. And honestly, when you think about the final war that's been building up, it's basically going to be about curing the world's biggest disease, the oppressive system that's been hurting people for 800 years. Hiraluk's cherry blossoms could be foreshadowing that moment when the whole world finally gets healed. The way the episode handles Hiraluk's sacrifice also shows how individual acts of heroism can inspire massive change. His death motivates Dalton to rebel against Wapol, which eventually leads to Drum Island getting a better government. That same pattern could apply to the whole world, small acts of healing and hope eventually growing into something that transforms everything. What's really beautiful about this theory is how it ties medicine and politics together. Hiraluk understood that you can't just treat symptoms. You have to cure the underlying disease. The corruption and oppression in the One Piece world is like a sickness that infects everything. But just like Hiraluk believed every disease could be cured, maybe the world's suffering can be healed too. The episode also shows how Kureha teaches Chopper that being kind isn't enough. You need actual medical skills and training to save people. That lesson applies to the bigger theory too. Having good intentions about fixing the world's problems isn't enough. You need the power and knowledge to actually make change happen. Look at how the episode presents the relationship between Chopper and the other reindeer. Even when he's trying to help by getting the mushroom, the other reindeer follow him and try to protect him. That shows how communities can work together to support each other, even when the individual actions might be misguided. The way Hiraluk hugs Chopper when he brings the poisonous mushroom is also important. Even though the mushroom will hurt him, Hiraluk recognizes Chopper's good heart and tells him he'll become a great doctor. That moment shows how love and recognition can inspire people to grow beyond their mistakes. Another detail that supports this theory is how the episode shows Wapol using the lie about sick doctors to trap Hiraluk. Corrupt leaders often use people's desire to help others against them. But Hiraluk's response, going anyway because helping people is more important than his own safety, shows how true healers operate. The timing of when Hiraluk eats the mushroom is also significant. He consumes the poison right before going to face Wapol, which means he's literally carrying the disease with him when he confronts corruption. Maybe that represents how healers have to understand and carry the pain of the world in order to cure it. What's really interesting is how the episode shows that Hiraluk's research and experiments were actually making progress. He was genuinely trying to develop cures that could help people. That suggests his belief in healing incurable diseases wasn't just naive optimism, but based on real scientific work. The way the episode presents the Ishi-20 doctors is also worth examining. These are supposed to be the best medical minds in the country, but they're all controlled by Wapol and can't actually help people freely. That represents how corruption can prevent even skilled people from doing good work. Another theory is that Robin, the Devil Child, may have her knowledge of history grant her a title like Lightbringer once the Void Century is revealed. 130. Beware her scent. The seventh one is Nico Robin. We see Robin officially join the Straw Hats and reveal more about her goals that might foreshadow her true destiny. The episode shows Robin appearing on the Going Merry after the crew escapes from the Marines. She's been called the Devil Child by the world government for her ability to read poneglyphs, but the way she talks about her goals reveals something deeper. She mentions wanting to find the Rio poneglyph to learn the true history, and admits she's spent 20 years searching for it, with Arabasta being her last good lead. The build-up to Robin joining the crew involves her explaining why she wants to be with them. She tells Luffy he forced her to live when she wanted to die, and now she has nowhere else to go. But there's something in how she talks about her archaeological work that shows she's looking for the truth that could change everything. During the flashback to the temple collapse, Robin reveals she lied to Crocodile about the poneglyph. She tells Cobra that all she really wants is to find the true history through the Rio poneglyph. The way she talks about it sounds like she believes this knowledge could completely change how people understand the world. That's someone who wants to bring hidden truth to light. Right after Robin joins the crew, she reveals she's been an archaeologist since age 8 and has done many different jobs, including killing. But she says this in a way that shows she's moved beyond that dark past. Now that she's with the Straw Hats, maybe she can finally pursue her real goal of uncovering the truth without having to work for criminals. When you think about what this theory means long-term, the implications are huge for what revealing the Void Century would do. The world government has spent 800 years hiding this history because it would destroy their legitimacy. Robin might be the key to exposing the truth that brings down their corrupt system and frees the world from oppression. What makes this theory really believable is how the episode shows Robin's knowledge as something precious and dangerous. The world government calls her the Devil Child because they're afraid of what she knows. But from another perspective, her ability to read the true history makes her exactly the opposite, someone who can bring light to darkness. The way Robin talks about giving up on her dream also shows she's been carrying this burden alone for too long. But now that she's with Luffy's crew, she might finally have the support she needs to achieve her real goal. The Straw Hats have a pattern of helping their crew members fulfill their dreams, and Robin's dream could be the biggest one yet. Think about how this connects to the themes of One Piece too. Throughout the series, we see how lies and hidden truths cause suffering. Robin's knowledge could be the key to healing all of that by finally revealing what really happened during the Void Century. That would make her role way more important than just being another crew member. The episode shows Robin as this mysterious, dangerous figure, but also as someone who's been searching for something meaningful her whole life. When she finds the true history and reveals it to the world, her title could change from Devil Child to something that reflects her role as someone who brought truth and freedom to everyone. And honestly, when you think about the final conflict that's been building up, it's going to be about truth versus lies, freedom versus oppression. Robin's knowledge could be the weapon that finally defeats the world government's propaganda and shows everyone what really happened. That would make her the person who literally brought light to the world's darkest secrets. The way the episode handles Robin's past also backs up this theory. She's done terrible things to survive, but she's also kept the most important knowledge in the world safe. When the time comes to reveal that knowledge, all her suffering will have been worth it, because she'll be saving everyone from the lies they've been living under. What's really cool is how Robin's ability to read poneglyphs makes her unique in the world. She's the only person who can unlock these ancient messages, which means she's the only one who can bring this hidden truth to light. That level of unique responsibility definitely sounds like someone destined for a legendary title. The episode ends with Robin settling into life with the Straw Hats, but you can tell she's still carrying the weight of her knowledge. Maybe joining this crew is what she needed to finally fulfill her true purpose, not just learning the true history, but sharing it with the world and earning a title that reflects her role as a bringer of light and truth. Another detail that supports this theory is how the episode shows the crew's reaction to Robin joining. Most of them are scared or suspicious at first, but Luffy immediately accepts her. That mirrors how the world might react when she reveals the true history. Some people will be afraid of the truth, but others will embrace it. The way Robin interacts with Luffy and Chopper using her powers also shows a softer side of her character. She's been seen as this dangerous criminal for so long, but with the Straw Hats, she can just be herself. Maybe that's what she needs to transform from the Devil Child into something more positive. Look at how the episode presents Robin's knowledge as both a blessing and a curse. She's the only one who can read the true history, but that knowledge has made her a target her whole life. When she finally reveals what she knows, that curse could become the greatest blessing the world has ever received. The episode also shows Robin explaining that she lied to Crocodile about the poneglyph's contents. She told him it only listed the monarchs of Alabasta, when it actually contained information about Pluton. That shows she's been protecting dangerous knowledge from falling into the wrong hands, which is exactly what a Lightbringer would do. What's really interesting is how Robin's story parallels other characters who brought knowledge to humanity in mythology. Prometheus brought fire to humans and was punished by the gods. Robin brought the ability to read ancient history and was punished by the world government. But just like Prometheus became a hero for his gift, Robin could become a legendary figure when her knowledge saves the world. Another theory is that Foxy's goofy Davy back fight is actually foreshadowing that the final fight for the One Piece may also be a quote-unquote game with world-changing stakes. In episode 207, Long Ring Long Land's Big Adventure, we get introduced to this weird concept that might be way more important than it seems. The episode shows the Straw Hats landing on Long Ring, Long Land, after escaping from G8. They meet this old guy named Tanjit who's been stuck on stilts for 10 years, and everything on the island is stretched out and long because people are so relaxed there. At the end, another ship captures the Going Merry and challenges them to something called a Davy back fight. The build-up to this challenge involves the crew exploring this strange island where all the animals are weirdly elongated. Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper are acting like kids and having fun, which sets this lighthearted tone. But then this mysterious captain shows up and captures their ship, forcing them into some kind of pirate game they've never heard of. The main event is really just the setup for the Davy back fight, but the way it's presented feels significant. This is a structured competition with rules and stakes. The idea that pirates would settle disputes through games rather than just fighting suggests there might be historical precedent for this kind of thing. Right after the challenge is issued, you can tell the Straw Hats are confused about what they're getting into. They've never encountered anything like this before, which means it's either really rare or really old. Either way, it feels like they're being introduced to something that connects to pirate tradition in a deeper way. Looking at the bigger picture, this theory connects to what we know about the final island and the One Piece itself. Roger's crew was laughing when they found the treasure, like it was some kind of joke or game. Maybe the final challenge to become Pirate King is maybe about proving yourself through some ancient competition. What makes this theory really interesting is how the episode presents the Davy back fight as this legitimate pirate tradition. It's not just something Foxy made up. It's apparently a real thing that pirates used to do. That suggests there's a whole history of resolving conflicts through games rather than violence. The way the episode handles the tone is also important. Everything on Long Ring, Long Land is relaxed and silly, but there's still real stakes involved. Maybe that's what the final challenge will be like. Something that seems fun on the surface but actually determines the fate of the world. Think about what we know about Joy Boy and the ancient history too. There's this sense that the previous era was more playful and free than the current one. Maybe the Davy back fight represents that older way of doing things, where conflicts were settled through competition rather than war. The episode also shows how rules and structure can make competitions fair, even when the participants have different strengths. In a regular fight, the strongest person wins. But in a game with rules, strategy and teamwork become more important. That could be exactly what's needed to determine who deserves to be Pirate King. And honestly, when you think about Luffy's personality, he'd probably love the idea of earning the One Piece through a fun competition rather than a serious battle. The whole series has been about him approaching piracy like a game, so maybe the final challenge will match his attitude. The way the episode ends with this mysterious challenge also feels like it's introducing a concept that will be important later. Oda doesn't usually spend time on random stuff that doesn't connect to the bigger story. If he's showing us the Davy back fight, it's probably because we'll see something similar again. What's really wild is how this could change our understanding of what it means to be Pirate King. Maybe it's not about being the strongest or finding the most treasure. Maybe it's about proving you can play the game of piracy better than anyone else, following rules that go back to the very beginning of the Pirate Age. The timing of when this happens in the story is also significant. The crew just came from Skypiea, where they learned about ancient history, and they're about to enter Water 7, where they'll face their biggest crisis yet. Maybe the Davy back fight is preparing them for the idea that their final challenges won't be what they expect. The way the episode introduces Tanjit is also worth examining. This guy has been stuck on stilts for 10 years because he was too scared to come down. That could represent how pirates have been stuck in cycles of violence and conflict, too afraid to try a different approach. Maybe the Davy back fight represents breaking out of that cycle. Look at how the episode shows the crew's reaction to the weird stretched animals too. They're fascinated by how different everything is on this island, but they adapt pretty quickly. That could be preparing them for the idea that the final challenges of their journey will be unlike anything they've experienced before. The episode also shows this contrast between the peaceful, relaxed island and the sudden appearance of another pirate crew looking for conflict. Maybe that represents the choice between the old way of doing things, violence, and the new way, structured competition. The Straw Hats are about to learn which approach really works. Another detail that supports this theory is how the episode presents the capture of the Going Merry, Instead of just attacking or stealing the ship, Foxy's crew uses it as leverage to force a specific type of confrontation. That shows they understand the value of following rules and traditions, rather than just taking what they want. The way the episode handles the mystery around who's challenging them is also interesting. We only see silhouettes and hints, which builds suspense, but also suggests this challenge is coming from something bigger than just one random pirate crew. Maybe it's connected to traditions that go way back in pirate history. What's really compelling about this theory is how it fits with One Piece's overall themes about freedom and adventure. If the final challenge to become Pirate King is actually a game rather than a war, it would mean that joy and creativity are more important than just raw power. That's exactly the kind of message Oda would want to send. The episode also shows how the crew works together to explore the island and deal with unexpected situations. Maybe that teamwork is what they'll need for the Davy back fight, and maybe that's what future challenges will test, not individual strength, but how well they function as a crew. Our final theory is that Kaido's obsession with dying is knowledge. EGO. He knows Joy Boy's return requires the quote-unquote death of the world's strongest. In episode 915, Destructive. One shot, one kill. Thunder Bagua. We see Kaido easily defeat Luffy with one attack, but there might be way more going on with his character than just being an unstoppable force. The episode shows Luffy throwing everything he's got at Kaido: Elephant Gatling, Grizzly Magnum, even Gear 4 Kong Organ Gun. But nothing works. Kaido just shrugs off attacks that would demolish other enemies. He's drunk, he's not even taking the fight seriously, and he still completely dominates Luffy with his Thunder Bagua technique. The build-up to this fight has been showing us how impossibly strong Kaido is. He's called the strongest creature in the world, he's supposedly unkillable, and he's been trying to die for years but can't find anyone strong enough to actually kill him. The episode reinforces this by showing Luffy's strongest attacks doing basically nothing to him. When Kaido finally ends the fight with Thunder Bagua, it's not even close. One hit and Luffy is completely knocked out. But here's what's interesting. Kaido stands over Luffy and scoffs at his dream of becoming Pirate King. For someone who supposedly wants to die, he sure seems invested in making sure the wrong person doesn't achieve that goal. Right after beating Luffy, the episode shows Kaido's dismissive attitude toward Luffy's ambitions. But what if that dismissiveness comes from knowledge rather than arrogance? What if Kaido knows something about what it takes to become Pirate King that makes him realize Luffy isn't ready yet? When you think about the bigger picture, this theory connects Kaido's death wish to all the prophecies and legends about Joy Boy coming back. We've heard throughout the series that certain things need to happen for the world to change. Maybe one of those things is that the current strongest guy has to be defeated or killed. What makes this theory really cool is how it changes everything about Kaido's character. Instead of being this mindless beast who just wants to fight and die, he becomes someone who gets his role in the bigger story. He's trying to die because he knows it's got to happen for the world to move forward. The way the episode shows Kaido's crazy power also backs up this idea. He's so strong that no regular person could ever beat him. But maybe that's the whole point. Maybe he needs to be defeated by someone special, someone connected to Joy Boy's will, for his death to actually matter. Think about what we know about the ancient prophecies and all that promised time stuff. There are specific things that need to happen for the world to change. Maybe Kaido's death is one of those things, and he's been trying to make it happen because he knows what's riding on it. The episode also shows how Kaido treats Luffy's dream like garbage. But what if that's because he knows Luffy isn't ready to be Joy Boy yet? Maybe Kaido is waiting for the right person to show up, someone who can actually beat him and start the next part of history. And honestly, when you think about Kaido's connections to Wano and all the ancient stuff there, this theory makes total sense. Wano is where Odin learned about the prophecy, where Joy Boy made his promise, and where the borders need to be opened. Kaido has been running this crucial place for decades, maybe because he knows his part in the prophecy. The way the episode ends with Kaido winning also feels symbolic. He's proven again that he's still the strongest, which means the right conditions haven't happened yet. The world will have to wait until someone worthy can actually beat him. What's really wild is how this theory explains Kaido's weird, contradictory behavior throughout the series. He wants to die, but he fights to win. He's trying to start a war, but he's also protecting important places. Maybe all of this makes sense if you get that he's following some kind of script about how the world is supposed to change. The episode shows Luffy getting completely destroyed, but instead of just being a power thing, maybe it's showing us that the timing isn't right yet. Luffy needs to grow more, learn more, and become the person who can be Joy Boy before Kaido's death will mean what it's supposed to mean. This theory also explains why Kaido seems to know so much about prophecies and ancient history. He's someone who gets the deeper stuff about history and knows what needs to happen for the world to change. His obsession with death is him trying to do his part in a way bigger story. This is it for today. Subscribe to our channel if you want more videos like these.